Good morning, everyone. I trust that you can hear me properly. I am Denise Besai, the Outreach and Communications Coordinator at the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute. And it's my pleasure to welcome you this morning to today's webinar, Digital Tools for Transforming Agri-Food Systems. This webinar is a collaboration between CARDI, the Alliance for Bioversity International, and the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, commonly referred to as CIAT. This initiative is being financed by the Presidential Agency for International Cooperation, also known as APC Colombia. I wish to extend a warm welcome to the representatives of these agencies, as well as to you, our participants. Good morning and welcome. We live in a digital era, and we acknowledge that digital tools are transforming the way we do business in every sphere of life. In agriculture, it's no different. However, for us in the region, while we recognize the importance of digital tools, it's not being used as the way it should be. In fact, it's used as way behind the adoption curve. And this is in spite of us in the region having high mobile penetration as well as broadband coverage. Today's webinar, the CIAT, who has been working for more than 15 years in developing and testing digital tools, will be sharing with us their experience, Colombia's experience in digital transformation of agri-food systems. 7 tools will be presented for potential use in agriculture. We'll be hearing about its use for perennial crop production, water management, pest and disease management, landscape restoration, and even communication and knowledge management. And these all harness things such as AI and GIS. We at CARDI, of course, are very pleased with this collaboration as it is happening under the umbrella of South-South Cooperation. Given our shared developmental challenges, it's an opportunity for us to work together, share knowledge and best practices. And through this initiative, we'll be able to support Caribbean countries through this initiative will have the opportunity to select one tool and work with the team to tailor it to their local conditions. With that brief introduction, I would like to welcome the Executive Director of CARDI, Mr. Ansari Hosein, to deliver some opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to all participants, farmers, processors, our friends at APC Colombia, CIAT, representatives of various institutions, ministries of agriculture, and other valued stakeholders. Today, we are here to discuss the use of digital tools in agriculture. And CARDI has recognized the importance of utilizing and embedding various digital tools in agri-food systems, whether it be at the farm production level or at the marketing and consumer level. We believe that it is critical for achieving the food security goals and objectives of this region. So much so that in our 2024 to 2028 strategic plan, digital transformation is a strategic pillar. And when we speak of digital transformation, we mean it in the context of maximizing the use of digital tools and systems to improve efficiency, sustainability, and performance in the sector itself, agribusinesses in the sector, and in our institution, that is CARDI as well. With the population sizes increasing and no new lands being made available for cultivation, the need for increasing efficiency and productivity is really urgent. The use of digital technology has a critical part to play in satisfying this need. Digital tools, it could help us make better informed decisions, help us to better determine what to plant, when to harvest. Example, when we use and access real-time weather data and forecasts. It can also help us to reduce waste or losses in inputs, and these inputs cost us money. Example, when we use monitoring soil health apps and crop growth in real time to optimize the use of inputs such as fertilizers and pesticides. And when we do that, it works out better for the environment. These tools, various tools, can also help us with automation, thereby reducing the need and the cost for labor. And in some of our countries, labor is scarce. And when things scarce, it gets expensive too. The digital platforms can also enhance the traceability and efficiency of various agricultural supply chains. They also have apps that could help with tracking and e-commerce platforms and mobile apps available. With some of these technologies available now, farmers can now widen their markets and get the best prices for products as well. You also have apps available to provide technical support, such as extension and even pest and disease diagnosis. All of this in the palm of your hands. And therefore, when CARDI participated in the knowledge fair of successful experiences for Colombia and Caribbean countries, which was hosted by the Presidential Agency for International Cooperation, APC Colombia, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Colombia almost 3 years ago, way back in 2022. And we were asked to propose and develop projects for consideration for funding through APC Colombia. Digital tools were on top of the list. And out of that, a partnership was born with the CIAT, the International Center for Tropical Agriculture, under this project, and another with the Colombian Agricultural Research Corporation, AgroSavia, under another project, which you will hear about in due course. And we wish to take this opportunity to thank both the APC Colombia for providing the financial support and the CIAT as part of the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT for partnering with us in implementation of this project. I also want to thank the CARDI team in particular for their efforts in putting together this session. The overall aim of this project is to improve climate, soil, and crop management knowledge capacities to reduce agricultural losses and facilitate adaptation and resilience to climate change in Caribbean countries. Specifically, with regard to this initiative, it aims to promote good practices in Caribbean countries through digital transformation in the agricultural sector based on the Colombian experience. And as we just heard, this is a good example of South-South cooperation where we tap into each other's knowledge resources, we leverage our networks, we share lessons learned, we share best practices and expertise with each other. There has already been some knowledge sharing happening even before today. In October 2024, we were pleased to welcome the participation of CIAT and AgroSavia to deliver presentations at our workshop on building resilience in Caribbean agriculture through digitalization, which was held during the Caribbean Week of Agriculture in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In recent times, CARDI too has implemented around 3 other projects using technology as part of an integrated pest management strategy. In Tobago, through financing from the Digital Foundation, the introduction and the use of bird whalers have proven to be an effective deterrent in controlling bird pests on cocoa farms across on that island. Through financing from the European Union and the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, in 9 coastal communities in Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and St. Lucia, we are deploying new, never-before-used sensor technology to monitor and detect the presence of the South American palm weevil, which is a serious pest of coconut palms. This technology will help inform timely mitigation and control strategies for this pest, while helping to protect some of our most vulnerable coastal communities. We had other digital interventions, which included establishing climate-smart production systems in various schools in Trinidad and Tobago, with financing through the FAO, and also we had an intervention in Barbados with financing from the Republic of Ireland through the CARICOM Secretariat. And today you'll be hearing of the various tools from our partners at CIAT in Colombia. And we heard about 7 different tools. So I urge you to please ask as many questions as you wish, share your knowledge and experiences as well, and remain engaged even after this session has posed as we all work together to fully transform our agri-food systems with these various digital technologies. Thank you.
Thanks, Ansari. So Mr. Hosein there gave us oversight on CARDI's program for digital transformation. In fact, it is now one of our strategic pillars under our new strategic plan. We heard about the utility of these tools in agriculture, and he spoke of some of the wider initiatives that we have done in this field. So it's not new for us, but definitely it's an area that we need to expand on, as our agriculture sector really depends and needs it. Next, I would like to invite, it's my pleasure to invite Ms. Manuela Alejandra Vivas Bocci, the Regional Cooperation Officer for the Caribbean at APC Colombia. We have had the pleasure of working with her, and I now invite her to deliver some remarks on this initiative.
Thank you very much. You can hear me well?
Yes, we are hearing you fine.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Ansari Hosein, Executive Director of CARDI, Ms. Denise Besai, Outreach and Communications Coordinator from CARDI, colleagues from CIAT, CARDI, and other institutions that are joining us here today, good morning. On behalf of Colombia's Presidential Agency for International Cooperation of Colombia, I extend a warm greeting to each of you and all the organizations that you represent. APC Colombia is pleased to participate in this webinar for the project, and we will also like to express our gratitude to CIAT and CARDI for their dedications and efforts in the project, and as well as for hosting this webinar. This initiative, that it's part of a project, is part of the Second Joint Commission on Technical, Cultural, Educational, and Sports Cooperation between the Republic of Colombia and the countries of CARICOM, Aruba, and Curacao. And this is a program in which Colombia shares its good practices and knowledge with the partners of the Caribbean under the modality of South-South cooperation that was also mentioning Ansari Hosein. So for Colombia, this is a modality where countries from the Global South exchange knowledge, share best practices among entities, and it's guided by some key principles such as demand-driven approaches, replicability, knowledge sharing, horizontality, shared cost, and added value. Peer learning not only facilitates the exchange of best practices, but also helps us to create and strengthen new partnerships between countries and entities. The agency believes that building bridges is very important because it connects people and fosters new forms of cooperation. Our aim in this sense is to ensure that the knowledge of the Global South, of the entities that have lots of different techniques, methods, and different good practices, can share them. And it's also value that it's valued and heard. That successful practices are shared and replicated, and the contributions of our entities towards the 2030 agenda are recognized. And also, we believe that in Colombia, our destiny is very linked to the one of the Caribbean, so we must participate in the debates and solutions being sought for these countries. As a region, we believe that our foremost commitment must be grounded in solidarity, also to achieve significant progress in the exchange of best practices. And this effort should be directed toward the development and implementation of capabilities with a particular focus on the digitalization of agriculture, that it's the main issue of this specific project. We believe by working together, we can strengthen cooperation among the countries of the Caribbean and Colombia and drive positive change and contribute to sustainable development. So we share the invitation that Mr. Ansari Hosein just gave to us, that you can really take advantage of all the knowledge that is going to be presented in this webinar, and that you can learn more about these good applications that the CIAT is going to share today. So thank you very much for hosting this event, and we hope that you can enjoy it and learn a lot about the different applications. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manuela, for that very brief but important insight. It spoke about the importance of knowledge sharing between us in CARICOM and Colombia. It's an opportunity to strengthen our partnerships and definitely an opportunity to strengthen the South-South cooperation. And given the global what is happening in the global arena, that is becoming more important. You would realize that you haven't heard from CIAT or Bioversity as yet, and that's because that their presenters will lead the next session that we have coming up, and this is where the 7 tools will be presented. So as we head into that session, I just have a few house rules for you. I just want you to note that the session is being recorded. The microphone is being controlled by the host of the event. Each presentation is 20 minutes long. 15 minutes is allotted for the actual presentation. And we have 5 minutes after each presentation with the opportunity for you to ask questions. If you're interested in asking a question, you can use the raise hand feature. The host will unmute you. When that is done, we ask you that you turn on your camera, identify yourself and the country that you're representing, and you can ask your question. Alternatively, you can type your question in the chat box if you feel the need to do that. As you can see, we do have a tight schedule, so I'm asking that the presenters please stick to their time of 15 minutes and kindly keep your questions short. With that being said, I'd like to welcome Dr. Bunn, scientist in climate action, and Mr. Paul Schmidt, consultant in climate action, to present on ACLIMATAR, Adaptation Project Implementation.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to start screen sharing. Okay, you can see my screen now?
Yes, we're seeing your screen.
Okay, perfect. So Bunn won't be able to join today, unfortunately, but it's a pleasure for me to be presenting our online tool, ACLIMATAR, which supports climate adaptation planning and implementation in coffee and cocoa farming. I'm Paul Schmidt. I'm working with the Alliance of Bioversity and CIAT, and the platform coordinator for ACLIMATAR. There we go. From our side, what does climate adaptation planning entail? We all are aware of the changes that are already occurring in the climate and in the weather systems that are exercising increasing pressure on coffee, cocoa, and other agricultural systems. If we want to take a forward-looking approach to save the productivity of those systems, we need to go through a process of first understanding what is the change that has happened in the past and is going to increase towards the future, assess the specific impacts that we expect for our agricultural systems, and identify different options how we can mitigate those negative impacts, prioritize them, and then move towards implementation. That's where our tool ACLIMATAR comes in. Oftentimes, climate data is seen and perceived as complex. There are different models out there. There's a lot of data. What we're doing with our tool is cutting through that complexity by providing an integrated experience that links climate data and a climate data ISO with climate risk assessment to provide tailored and localized adaptation options. This approach is complemented by additional materials like a learning course and also workshop templates for the interaction with extensionists. The tool in itself is aimed at agricultural extensionists, cooperatives, and project managers, kind of the step before going to the farmers, planning how can we adjust to the climate change that is happening and is going to happen, and identifying those options that help us to mitigate the negative impacts that we can expect. In the tool, we link top-down risk assessment. So we're using global climate models that are downscaled to point-specific locations, so you can retrieve data for your location of interest, and you'll see hazards and the degree of impact that is expected from climate change. However, in the tool, to not stay at only the analysis side, we also then provide adaptation options that have been elaborated in workshops with stakeholders from the coffee and cocoa sectors, how those different climate risks can be mitigated, to really link together the practices on the field that are necessary to build up their resilience and integrate those into adaptation strategies that are differentiated by the impact regions, while in a greater context of working towards an enabling environment for effective climate adaptation. So ACLIMATAR itself is an online platform with geospatial data, adaptation options, and then also the options to generate customizable reports on those hazards that are dooming and the adaptation practices that can be used for mitigating them. Our underlying approach starts from the point of view that climate adaptation needs to be differentiated by regions and by the impacts. One of the main underlying concepts is the concept of impact gradients, where we differentiate regions between incremental adaptation, systemic adaptation, and transformational adaptation according to the degree of impact that is expected and the future viability of the crop in the climate context. So I talked a lot about, okay, what is the tool about? Now I'm going to talk and walk you through the user experiences on using the tool. So we are using a linear approach that is following 5 steps to get you from the analysis to the adaptation options. The users start by choosing a crop of interest. The tool in itself is featuring 3 crops: cocoa, coffee, and tea. Maybe I should have said that in the beginning. It has been developed with Rainforest Alliance, Agriculture, Hans Neumann Stiftung, and Coffee and Climate Foundation, and the World Cocoa Foundation. And the interface that I'm showing right now is from our work that we have done in Africa and East and West Africa in 6 major coffee, tea, and cocoa production countries, where we've brought that to life, tailoring it to the needs of Rainforest Alliance. On choosing your crop of interest, you'll be asked to select a specific location of interest where you want to retrieve the data for. We have different formats how this can be done, either by inputting GPS coordinates, by clicking on a map interface, or choosing an administrative district. And we also have the option for logged-in users to then register and administrate directly multiple locations, like, for example, uploading an Excel file with a GPS coordinates from the different locations. Once you've chosen your locations, we have 2 large blocks of analysis. On the one hand, climate data part, which shows precipitation data, temperature data, and selected climate risks for your crop of interest, comparing always the past, the current, and the future state that we project. Why do we include also past data? We think it is highly important to align also with the lived experience of the users. They are the ones working years and years in the field and already expect the change that they have seen in the past. So by including this past perspective, we can align with their experience and make kind of this more abstract thing of looking and projecting towards the future more tangible and more understandable for the users. This was the precipitation view. Then we have a section where we're showing changes in temperature data, and then selected climate risks. we are normally focusing on heat risk, drought risk, and heavy rainfall risk. Those are tailored to the specific crop that has been chosen, either coffee or cocoa. And then also a human heat risk indicators to assess also the risk to farm workers. Then from the climate data view, we're transitioning to map section, where on the one hand, we use the concept of agroclimatic zonings and how these change towards the future. And based on these changes, we're then also showing an impact gradient, which kind of summarizes the level of stress that is expected for the farming system and how suitable the climate is based on current knowledge for continuing farming this crop, or whether it might be necessary to think also about more diversified farming systems in that particular location. Finally, we have the solutions part, where here you first will meet a summary dashboard of the different future crop risks, for example, that you see in the lower right-hand corner, or also changes in the rainfall patterns and the temperature trends, as well as kind of this adaptation class, the indicator that indicates, okay, how large is the stress level on your farming system. Then we have a section where we're providing strategic advice. Okay, this, for example, systemic adaptation option, what does that mean for my farming system? To then provide tailored adaptation practices. It's a long list of different practices that can be used and can be implemented to mitigate the climate risks, and where we also then link to additional materials. We normally expect that most of the farm extensions, for example, would have a knowledge of those practices. We intentionally work normally with those practices that are already readily available in the country and are known to the extensionists, but which through the tool are then prioritized to really mitigate those risks that have been identified. But in case they are kind of new or that extensionists would like to have additional reading, we then link to external descriptions of those practices, maybe normally farm materials, extension manuals. I already mentioned the support material that is available with the platform. We do have an online tutorial that guides you through the use of the platform. We do develop the learning course, which is freely available, so far only in English, and is kind of giving a broader context on adaptation work in those different cropping systems, and also how to integrate that into actionable work. And then even developed workshop templates. These are available in English and Spanish, as well as the platform in itself is also translated to Spanish, and where we try to spell out different use cases or workshops, how the data from the platform can be used in workshops with farmers, or also in the strategic planning within cooperatives to make use of the insights gained from the analysis in the platform. Speaking about use cases, these are the major use cases that we envision. On the one hand, the platform very useful to raise awareness about the issue of climate change and about kind of the future tendency of how climate change might be becoming more of an issue towards the future. But then also really go into the details of, okay, what is the direction of change for my region, for my location, that I'll have to be aware of, and discuss the different practices or strategies that can be implemented in the farm. At kind of a higher level, the tool is also seen as very useful in the context, for example, of project applications, where through the tool, the tendency of change can be assessed, and then already a long list of adaptation practices is directly available. And all with the great advantage that we're using kind of a standardized set of climate data, which also can be compared between different regions or countries, thereby cutting a lot of those tedious steps before of, okay, what module to choose down to unified interface. Right now, ACLIMATAR is available in East and West Africa for coffee, cocoa, and tea. In Latin America, it's available in Peru, Ecuador, and Colombia for cocoa. And in Central America, we already have a previous interface of ACLIMATAR where we worked on cocoa and coffee, but which could be readily updated to make it available and tailor it also to the needs of the different member countries. That's basically it. Here I'll leave you some of the comments from early users of the platform. And yeah, I'm happy to receive your questions. I guess you will also be sharing the platform, because here we kind of have put together all the different links. We also have an API and application platform interface where we could integrate data from our platform into third-party tools in case this is also of interest. And with it, yeah, happy to receive your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Paul. It really demonstrated to us how climate change adaptation planning has been used in perennial crop production, such as cocoa, coffee, and tea, how it supports decision-making at the farm level, and it's helping to mitigate climate risks, which is an important consideration for us in the region, given that we are at the forefront of this climate change fight. We now open the floor for a few questions. I see the first hand up, Mr. Donovan Jackson. You can proceed.
Yeah, good morning, colleagues. Donovan Jackson, CARDI representative, Simpson and Grindings. While you presented on the usability of the climate app, my question is, how much data you need to have beforehand to be able to make projection for future forecasting?
Thank you so much for your question. So I'd like to clarify here that the platform is for climate projection data. So we're looking at kind of the space of 20, 30 years towards the future. We're not looking into seasonal forecasts. We are using freely globally available data sets that we downscale for the country and then tailor to the different to the crop of interest. How much data we need? It's rather about kind of the processing of that data that would take time. And on the other hand, we normally like to also work within the country to really tailor the adaptation options that we're showing to the local context and farming systems. So that would be kind of additional data that would be needed, but I'm not sure if that was exactly what you were asking. If not, please clarify. Mr. Jackson?
Yes, yeah, I think you start answering the question somewhat. The last question, though, is in terms of its reliability. How farmers would have been able to use this information to help them to better plan their agronomic practices. Is there a high adoption rate among the users who are the users of the information of the app that you have? What problems have you encountered? What challenges have you encountered to get farmers to buy into that sort of app that you have?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Regarding adoption rates, we are not targeting directly farmers but the extensions that are catering to the farmers or the cooperatives, because we feel like that the climate data is one information point amongst many, an important information point, but it needs to be complemented by further or kind of the localized knowledge really of the extensions. Right now, the platform has about 115 monthly users. And what challenges with the adoption rates, or what drives the adoption rate, is kind of the buy-in from the different entities that stand behind the tool. Like, for example, with Rainforest Alliance, we've seen that to a certain extent the use of the tool hinges in the certification board, or also the member companies, that they are really after saying like, this is a tool that they would like their members to use and their extensionists to use, to make it a standard practice of informing yourself about the change that is going to come. That I would say is kind of one of the major point that influences the adoption rate.
Thank you. The floor is still open for a couple more questions. Just remember as well, we do have the Q&A that you can use to ask your question. So I have a question here from Daniel Ruplal. And he's asking, why specifically cocoa, coffee, and tea, and also any future plans to introduce other crops? This app can be beneficial for root crops.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Rolpal. So our research group is very much focused in the past on cocoa and coffee. So that's kind of where we come from, and we worked a lot on climate adaptation, on climate smart agriculture for those crops, and then saw, okay, there's the need for making the data that we produce more accessible in an interactive way, and that can be tailored to different use cases. Looking at other crops, the modeling approach that we are using is especially beneficial for perennial crops. So I would say that's one important aspect to mention there. And then we'd need to discuss in detail what other crops you'd be interested in, also to make sure that we have the sufficient agronomic knowledge in this cropping system. I think that those would be the things that would need to be discussed more in detail. Then I just saw another question popping up on the API. Please just contact us directly, p.schmidt@cjr.org, but I think we'll also have the mail address at some point, and then we can discuss the use of the API. But please also.
I still see your hand up. Is it that you have another question?
Yes, well, the API, I didn't really get it. Could you slowly repeat it so I can write it down, please?
Is there any opportunity to share it? The API in itself, we would like to, the easiest way would if you write us a mail, and we can then discuss that in detail.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is there a way for you to literally demonstrate the software, as in opening the software and share the screen?
Of the API or of the platform?
Of the application itself.
Yes, if time allows. So that would be kind of the basic start screen. I can also, well, it's in English, that's okay. So you choose your country, Then choose your crop, and for example, choose your location of interest. And here you have those different data views available. You can kind of toggle in and toggle off the different.
Could you choose? Could I tell you the region to choose? And you choose that region, like Jamaica, for example.
We don't have data for Jamaica. And for the Caribbean countries, it's kind of a previous interface of the website, which is ACLIMATAR.org. And there we could choose, for example, a region in Honduras, and then have access to the specific data for that location.
Okay, carry on. Let's carry on.
Okay. So you would then choose, for example, cocoa, and then have different.
This though is not English. I don't think the one that you had before was English.
Yeah. So this here would be the one in English, where you then have temperature, climate risks, and those different maps that I mentioned, and then the solution space that I was mentioning. Now it's loading. There. So here you have kind of the summary dashboards, the strategic advice, and then the different practices, with the option to save the location, download a report, and maybe it's also interesting. This would be kind of the interface. If you're logged in, everybody can already create an account, and then you can kind of see the different locations that you've saved or accessed before.
So what kind of data the API provides?
The API provides pretty much the data that we were showing here. But this would be if you already have an interface, like, for example, the question before around adoption rate. I think in some cases it can make sense, like, for example, if within the cooperative structure or something, you already have an online tool, that then we build in the data from our platform into that other interface. But as this kind of needs some follow-up discussion, I would prefer to have a specific meeting on that. But the data through the API is from those countries where we have kind of this version 2 interface. So East and West Africa, as well as the 3 countries in South America that I mentioned, Ecuador, Colombia.
All right.
Okay.
All right. I was just looking at the screen with the platform material where the API was. I'm seeing the tutorials as well. So whatever you're doing here, we can also go back and watch it from this link that you provide here.
Yes, you can just go to that link, and then you'll see those different interfaces and can play around with it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Ms. Besai. I don't know if there's a...
So we do have another question in the Q&A, and this would be our last question because we need to move on. With regards to downscaling, is there the opportunity to marry this to a participatory approach at the local community level to collect data which could lead to better decision-making? I'm making this alignment to an approach called Participatory Integrated Climate Services for Agriculture, as the source data seems to be more abstract A response isn't needed now, but for consideration if you need to look into the PICSA approach for more information or context.
Yeah, just very briefly, great question. PICSA, we're aware of that approach and see it as highly relevant, and also see that data from our platform could be used in a PICSA-like discussion, specifically for those crops. Normally in PICSA, it's, from my understanding, it's more on annual crops and then livestock options. But exactly, that would be kind of the context where you would feed in data from the platform to make it relevant to the farmer, and to then move from, okay, we have the analysis, we have the longer list of options, to then really see, okay, what are those options that in this specific local context are the ones that most speak to the local community.
Thank you. Thank you all for your questions. I'm sure Mr. Schmidt would be available via email or via contacts to discuss in greater detail the app that was just presented. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we are moving along to presentation number 2. We're joined by Dr. Fidel Cheriboga, who is a consultant in multifunctional landscape, and he will be presenting MyFarmTrees, a community-led landscape restoration tool.
That's right. Can you hear me properly? And can you see my screen?
We are seeing a screen.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Buenos días a todos. It's a pleasure to be here. And on behalf of the rest of the team, I'll be presenting MyFarmTrees, which is a combination and integration of different tools and applications with science spaces for tree-based restoration, trying to integrate biodiversity in production sites and benefiting local communities in it. Let's see if this is working. All good. So just to start a little bit with the bottlenecks behind forest landscape restoration, I'm thinking of the body of scientific work that stands behind this. Within the Alliance and in the network of scientists, there has been quite a number of outcomes that have outlined the different barriers against scaling sustainable, resilient, functional, adaptive forest landscape restoration. There are many barriers, and what we're trying to do here is to solve some of them through digital innovation. Some of the outcomes from this literature have to do with significant gaps in native tree seed supply, thinking of managing the genetic resources of forest resources. Also, the lack of involvement of local communities in managing the seed systems is crucial, and it stands as an opportunity for improvement to be able to establish resilient work. There is a crucial need to strengthen policy around seed systems. There is a need to build the capacity and investments in seed systems, and also going to the next steps, nursery systems, and integrate more biodiversity in forest landscape restoration work. In all of this, there are substantial opportunities for enabling entrepreneurship when it comes to nurseries and the market around restoration for farmer-led initiatives. And there's also a key component in all of this when it comes to social inequalities, to access land, to access mobile technology, and to benefit from nature-positive work. So there's a necessity to create solutions for recommendations, science-based, for monitoring, for verifications, and for benefits, for equitative benefit from forest restoration work from seed to tree. And in this context, for today, we're thinking a lot also of tree species that benefit not only to biodiversity and carbon sequestration, but also to nutrition and income generation in farms or in production sites. So we need to build up solutions that build capacity in improved seed systems, have solutions for monitoring, traceability, verification of tree-based restoration, have solutions that can give opportunities to register, offer, and demand of tree species diversity to increase the diversity in production sites, enable options for international digital payments so we can empower the practitioners, the local communities, the farmers, maximizing their benefits, and and we need to make these solutions gender and social inclusive. So if this is working. So what we have done with MyFarmTrees, or what the team has been done for the last years, is to create an integration of tools into a platform that we call the MyFarmTrees platform, which is a holistic integration in terms of community info and knowledge transfer. So to contextualize to local context, to have local nurseries registers, to have a transparent tool, an integration of tools for transparent and trustworthy monitoring, and to be able to have digital payments as complementary incentives to this. In a nutshell, how it works is it's based on traceability and verification from seed to tree, in which the different steps of forest landscape restoration can be recorded. And so there can be opportunities for knowing more about where to collect seeds from and monitor the origin of seeds, and then go into the nurseries, be able to register where the seeds are being germinated, and the whole exchange of seedlings with different biodiversity aspects, and then be able to track it all the way to farms. The tools have been piloted in Kenya and Cameroon. The head of Francis and Marius, who are here on the left, in different counties with different types of forest landscapes, always thinking of empowering local communities there. And it's really interesting that what I think is really relevant, that the development of the tools have been made in iterative processes with local communities. So the development has informed the practices, and the practices have informed back to the development, making it as user-friendly as possible. So this has resulted in a combination of mobile applications that are already available for downloading and that we are onboarding different organizations for. And the names are there, and they're available for Android and in the future for iPhone as well. Some of the outcomes from the pilot phases, and thanks to the first donor, the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, have resulted in a great number of hectares that the platform has supported restoration of, a great number of farmers that have been benefited, a great number of seedlings, nurseries that have been registered, a great number of species, and also quite some activities of great impact when it comes to outreach. So the tools being advertised and showcased in different fora, conferences, presentations as this one, but also online with potentially millions of observers learning from it, especially in Kenya, with some local shows there. So if we think about how it works, how the apps work as users, the first app, My Geo3 Collector, has to do with seed collection. So thinking of the role of a seed collector, maybe they want to use this tool for document and manage seed collection activities, contribute to quality in forest restoration, enhancing not only species diversity, but also genetic diversity as a supply to forest landscape restoration, ensure traceability and quality of collected seeds, but also have an opportunity to receive incentives for the collections, because it's quite some hard work to collect seeds, and there should be benefit for it. In a nutshell, how it works is that there are QR codes from the beginning where the seeds are collected. So there's collection of seeds, and that these QR codes contribute to the georeferencing and the registry for, and then the apps are registering all this information. And so with QR codes, the source of the seeds is already registered, and then it's compatible with the next step, which would be delivering to the nurseries. So as a nursery staff member, the next application, which is compatible with the previous one, they actually have the same technological basis in the servers. The nursery staff would then want to use the next app, My Geo3 Nursery, to process the incoming seed collections, to be able to know where they're coming from, to manage seedling propagation and distribution, to know where they are going to ensure the efficient propagation of high quality seedlings, and to provide labels for the monitoring. This also provides opportunities through community channels to be able to exchange information about who is producing certain diversity of seedlings and which species, and to be able to exchange and have access to markets when it comes to nursery work. So how it works then, there are different steps, but basically having the same QR code that related to the source of the seeds, and then be able to create new traceability options for the seedlings per se, thinking of how they will be implemented into the ground and how they will be growing, so to be able to track them afterwards on the implementation sites. So thinking then as a farmer or a forest landscape restoration practitioner, the person wants to use my GeoFarm, the next application, to monitor and verify the growth of the trees, to learn about sustainable farming practices, and then to receive incentives for the contribution and conservation. Incentives then as economic benefits if there is sourcing for it. So these are the perspectives from the practitioners, from the implementers on the implementation sites. Then as an organization, an investor, a donor, a company who wants to use the platform from the other side of the equation, let's say, then they might want to use this platform to develop the capacity of the practitioners implementing the nature-based solutions that they are investing in or supporting, have a mean of run-through verification that can be compatible, for example, with remote sensing. And with those means of verification, they know what is being implemented where. Have data-driven insights from social and environmental outcomes. So not only what species are implemented where and what is the level of biodiversity, but also have key aspects of who is involved in this. So social parameters as well. Then decide on rewarding factors, who is being benefited and in which factors, and thinking of what are the benefits and values of different types of species and different places that are being implemented, for example, to calculate the benefits that people are getting on the ground. And then to use digital payments to maximize the benefits on the ground. Then the person or an organization would potentially be interested in partnering up with a science-based player that is interested for impact solutions. So a little bit on the challenge, on the benefits, the functionality behind MyFarmTrees is built upon a point challenge system that has to be achieved, or that calculates the different steps that have to be covered for rewarding the restoration work and the different factors that can be used for calculating the benefits. So I mentioned that MyFarmTrees have been piloted in Kenya and Cameroon, but we're now scaling it into different geographies and different types of applications. So some of the segments that we are working on for this expansion are implement organizations, of course, farmers, practitioners, members of local communities who would like to use the tool. So we are establishing pilot projects with it. Policymakers and sustainability implementers within governmental organizations and NGOs are also very welcome to engage with the tool, and we can see what are the best partnership opportunities. Then the private sector is very interested in this. We're collaborating already with the natural capital initiatives and companies, for example, within carbon credits, which see the value in the ground truth verification system, and as well as other types of investors, donors, and philanthropic sources. The format here got a bit weird, but so as mentioned before, we're piloting new geographies, confirming the value of the platform in across the global south, learning mutually how from each other what kind of implementation they're doing and how MyFarmTrees is being beneficial to their work, and doing this remotely. So testing how it is to train people remotely, and with that capturing opportunities for improvement and integration. We are also looking for integrating with other frameworks, and in which we will be the science providers and the solution for monitoring, report, and verification, and potentially for payments. And then we're also engaging with partnerships and consortia for different fundraising opportunities. A little bit on the geographical scale of how we're expanding in Africa. And we're looking for expanding and maintaining the work that has been implemented in Cameroon and Kenya. And there has been exploratory phases with partnerships in other countries in the region, the continent. In Asia, the tools are ready for implementation this year in northern Vietnam and Laos. And implementation has started in Malaysia and Indonesia, is in the pipeline for Philippines. This is within a larger project called C23, led by Rina, our colleague, and she's also welcoming interested organizations there. There's different sources of funding for this, and then in India, there's also some funding secured. Some key partners have been trained, and we're looking forward to starting the implementation there soon, led by another colleague, Schmidt, who is based there. Now, thinking of Latin America and the Caribbean, this is our next target region that we are really interested in. We're currently onboarding organizations, piloting how it is to what I mentioned before, engaging with pilots, for example, in Ecuador. There is interest in Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. I welcome the opportunity to the Caribbean as well. And we have proven interest through different activities, for example, in the COP16 in Cali. So if anybody is interested, then let's talk more and see what is the best opportunity to move forward. But we look how we'll see the future of MyFarmTrees, and what we want ultimately as a main goal is to integrate different tools. And I mentioned some of them, but some of others that we'll be presenting here today are also part of this network of tools that we're thinking of putting together for achieving forest landscape restoration that takes into consideration gender, equity, livelihoods, nutrition, and climate. That's it for me. I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you so much for listening. And for the whole team, this is an absolute complete collective teamwork that I'm really thankful to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cheriboga, for a very well detailed presentation. We do have one question already in the Q&A. So it's generally, how accessible are these apps? If it's only available in a few countries, is there another approach in accessing these applications without complications, or will a link be sent to set up these apps?
Those are really good questions. So the apps are available for anybody who wants to download them. They're available on Google App Store. However, and anybody could try them, just to see how they work in a very superficial way. However, to be able to have access to the full functionality, at the moment, we're able to establish pilot projects by onboarding interest organizations. So they would have to contact us at this stage, and we will be able to provide them with some information and training material so they can start using it to try it out. Now, what we want to do throughout this year is to generate training material that is publicly available. So we can cut and make more efficient these onboarding and implementation steps. That when it comes with implementation. So anybody who's interested is really welcome to reach out, and we will see the opportunities. This is also a great opportunity for us to learn how to collaborate globally across the global south as our main mandate, and scale the platform. Now, if the implementation is really at large scale and we need certain large level of technical requirements, then we might have to engage into raising funds for covering certain technical aspects that have to be there for delivering the best use of the platform. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Is it possible for you to provide us with contact information so that we can share it with our participants?
Yeah, absolutely. I will write it down here. Well, I can't write to everyone. I'm not really sure how to provide contact details. But let me, for example, share my screen again. You can reach out to us through LinkedIn. There is a QR code there that you can scan. Otherwise, I hope that the organizer of today can add my email because I can't do it in the chat. Now probably is the screen being shared. And I'd be really happy to engage in conversations with anybody who's interested.
So in the chat, we do have the email addresses. It's there as well. Is it the CIAT LinkedIn page?
Sorry?
Is it the CIAT LinkedIn page that we can go to for further information?
No, the best would be to go directly to us on MyFarmTrees LinkedIn page, for sure.
Oh, so there is a page on LinkedIn for the
Exactly. I'm not sure if you can see my screen that I'm sharing now. I hope so. Or to write me directly an email, but I can't write it to all the participants.
So yeah, so it's MyFarmTrees on LinkedIn, and there's a
Perfect.
QR code there as well.
Exactly.
And there is a website address, www.myfarmtrees.org.
Exactly, which we're looking forward to updates on.
Thank you. We have two more questions. Sorry, one more. Does this app utilize blockchain technology?
Yes, it does. It's based on functionalities on blockchain, and I didn't want to get too deep into details. And other panelists who are here today could be also able to answer that in more detail. But it is based on a blockchain thinking and foundation. Although the scaling will require more blockchain implementation, and they were also thinking of the opportunities for implementing AI in all this equation to be able to improve the user functionality and make the whole work more efficient.
Great, thanks. I'm not seeing any more questions. I know attendees has their hands raised. So I would like to thank Dr. Terboga for his presentation. I'm seeing another question, and I'll be able to answer that. Would the recording be available? Yes, it would be available. The recording will be up on CARDI Caribbean's YouTube channel. And that should take us about a couple of days to put up, but it will be there.
Great.
Thank you very much. We're moving
Thank you
on
too.
now to presentation number 3, and I would like to invite Mr. Juan Mora, who is a research associate, to present on Tumeni, AI-powered mobile app for pests and diseases.
Great, thank you very much. So let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen there?
No, we're not seeing. Yes, it came up.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Juan Jose Mora. I'm an electronics engineer. I've been working at CIAT for the past 3 years, along with Dr. Michael Selvaraj in the Phenomics platform, and mostly my job during this time has been oriented to creating AI-powered tools. In this case, today we're going to talk about a tool that we have been using for disease detection in banana crops, which is Tumeni app. And so basically to get started, one of the reasons why we started working with bananas is, as many of you know, bananas, they tend to be a very relevant crop, especially in the Latin American and the Caribbean region. But in this case, it's also a global approach. So many countries, part of their exports or incomes because of exports are related to banana trade. For example, countries like Ecuador, Guatemala, and even Peru represents $1 million or billion-dollar industries. In terms of food security, it's also a staple crop that is highly consumed across many developing countries. And then finally, there was one specific issue with bananas that its yield is normally very affected, or it's a crop that is very prone to several pests and diseases. And then taking this into account and also seeing how this disease is normally managed, or how disease are detected, or how the surveillance process goes. What normally happens is that it relies on field scouting. So national government agencies and PPOs, they tend to select specific places where there are hotspots, and then on foot, they go around the field and record everything on paper. So oftentimes this is very time consuming. This is very tedious, expensive, and it's something that's not really available, especially to small farmers. And in many cases, it can be even very, very inefficient. So taking this into account, when I arrived at CIAT about 3 years ago, Dr. Michael approached me and we discussed that the idea of creating a system that could improve the surveillance and detection of diseases in banana crops. So we think, or what we thought at that point, was to have maybe an airborne platform to monitor large areas, and then also a ground level platform in case if you have just a few banana plants and you want to see in more detail what's going on. And then on the second side of that, then we also had the idea of all this information that we generate to try to bring it into a platform or a way that people can visualize this information and make data-driven decisions based on this. So for this, we started working with AI, more specifically with deep learning. So over the past 3 years, the term AI has been moved around a lot. It's an important field, and with ChatGPT and everything. And so specifically what we do here in our division or in my work is use a branch of AI called deep learning. So the idea behind deep learning is that it's a sub area of machine learning and it's a sub area of AI in general, and it mostly focuses on using deep neural networks. So the idea of these deep neural networks is that they allow these algorithms to learn from information, imitating the way that we humans learn. So for example, I always use this because inside of deep learning, we work with an area called computer vision, which is basically, it allows computers to interpret information, visual information like pictures and videos the same way as we humans do. So for example, let's say that the first time we ever saw a banana, we were probably very young, and we capture this information with our eyes, right? And then after that, our brain processes the visual information, and normally someone who was there at the time helps us establish the relationship between the physical and visual characteristics of the banana with the name of with the actual name. So this same idea is what we are applying in our work. We take images, in this case, for example, you can see this is a banana tree infected with fusarium wilt. And then we capture this information using a sensing device, whether it's a drone camera, cell phone camera, multispectral camera, RGB camera. And then we have our processing device, in this case, a computer or a server that has the deep learning models that allow, and then we sort of train them so they can learn based on the visual characteristics of the image, what it is actually representing, and we assign it a name. So this means that the more information I give the computer about an image, the more it can learn more easily about what's going on and be able to identify more easily the diseases that are present. So overall, how does this pipeline work? It starts with, again, collecting a lot of data in the field, whether it's drone data or whether it's ground level data, and we collect thousands and thousands of images. Then after that, we of course have to do data cleansing and pre-processing. So make sure that the images that we collected actually work, that they're showing the correct symptoms. Remove those that are not helpful. Also, reorganize or organize the data, and also make sure that all of the data is in the same format, the format that is normally going to be used, resize the size of the photo so that they all have the same size. And then after that, we select an AI model based on what we want to do. So in this case, we are doing computer vision. So we select computer vision models or architectures, and we test them to see which one performs the best, which is related to the fourth step, which is the model training and the validation. And then after we complete all of this comes probably the most important part of our work, which is the model deployment. So after we have created an AI model, how can we make it available? How can we let people who are stakeholders in the banana industry use these tools that we've created? So this is when we think about putting the models in an app, or maybe putting the models in a website, or thinking about how people can access this information. So here are some examples of how the process works. So you can see right now, we are detecting in 6 different plant parts. You have the corm, you have the banana bunch, the entire plant, and the pseudostem. So initially, the first version of Tumaini was released in 2019. The way it worked was very simple. You can either take a picture or you can upload a picture from the gallery of your smartphone, and then it would scan the picture and would highlight the areas that are showing certain diseases and give you a a description of the disease. And also one thing that we added about 2 years ago was also georeferencing the images based on the picture's metadata or where the cell phone and the user are located, depending if you upload the picture or if you take it directly from your phone camera. So, and this was very innovative at the time, but it also had some problems. Some of the feedback we received during this time with Tumaini was that some misdetections because the models, they are never going to be perfect, but what we try to do is minimize the error in terms of predictions. Also, topics related to sensitive information. If we're starting to map different GPS locations or different hotspots of the plants, is this publicly available? Some countries, for example, in Latin America, are very consider this information to be highly sensitive. So this was also a concern. Then detection of diseases that are not present in a specific region. For example, I got a lot of comments saying that, for example, in northern Colombia, they found Xanthomonas wilt, which is a bacterial or disease that is normally found only in Central Africa. And so this was also a concern because it was detecting diseases that were not really present in each region. And then finally, well, some user experience comments that more related to once the app gave you a detection, there was like no way to save it or see it afterwards. So, and again, I think this really resonates a lot with the complexity of the crop, because if you look at, for example, these 3 different sets of photos, initially you can see that bananas tend to have very similar these 3 pictures look very similar. And it turns out that these 3 are actually 3 completely different diseases. So imagine if that for humans, it's very difficult to tell apart what's going on each plant just based on one picture, just based on one symptom, then it's even much harder for AI to do it. And then the next thing that we thought about was, what if we start to separate the diseases based on different regions worldwide? And that's what we've actually been doing over the past year. So we started, instead of having, Tumaini tried to have one model that fits all the regions, we started dividing and doing like sub-models for each of the regions. So for example, in the case of Latin America, Tumaini can detect fusarium wilt, black sigatoka, moco, and the corn weevil. But for example, in Asia or in Africa, we have a completely different set of diseases that works and are tailored and trained with specific images from each of those regions. So here, for example, you can see that in a newer version of Tumaini, we also tried to focus on selecting the region. And now what we do is we sort of guide it not just to take one picture, but to move it through a step-by-step detection process. So it'll normally start asking you to check the part of the plant that has the most relevant symptoms. And then based on that, it also asks the user to confirm if what the model is detecting also is the same what the user is seeing with their own eyes. So it's not just the AI model participating, but it's also sort of a feedback between what I'm actually seeing in the field and what the model is telling me. And this has allowed us to attain more precise detections. And then after that, it's going to ask you to check different symptoms and ask you different questions about the crop. And then based on this, it can give you a more precise detection, considering all of the symptoms and different parts of the plant of what is going on with, in this case, the banana crop. And then finally, in terms of growth, Tumaini was released the first version in 2019. Up until October last year, we were over 14,000 downloads. I think right now we should be very close to 15,000. The countries with the most downloads is actually, well, India is probably one of the countries who are most popular, then followed by Latin America, banana producing countries such as Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And then the other 53% of the app is mostly Central Africa and some countries in the Caribbean region. And so Tumaini has also been highly or very, very mediatic. We've been mentioned in several news or media outlets such as the New York Times, Reuters, the Times India, and you name it. So returning to the system, we talked about the ground level ideas that we had. Now mentioning about the airborne platform or that we're working on it's basically the same idea. So what we did in this case was that we have the banana fields. We take pictures using our drones, and then we do the processing in our server to create these sort of mosaics, which are basically a large picture of the complete banana field. Then we do some additional image processing with Python, and we create images that look like this. Oh, well, these are the mosaics, and these are the images that we generate. So we take thousands of these images. For example, one of the most recent models that we trained has about 20,000 images like this. And we give it to the AI model and we tell, okay, please look at this, you know, extract the information and basically learn from what's going on in this field. And then after that, if I show the same AI model a picture it has never seen before, it's going to give me predictions like this. So it's able to identify which plants are healthy and which plants are sick or showing some symptoms of sickness. And then the idea, or what we have intended, is that the person, you know, after you do a scanning of a large field, and you can come closer with the Tumaini app and you can record the location of that plant, and you can ideally take a sample, send it to the lab, which is what we recommend, and then you can get a more precise detection of what's going on in your banana crops. One of the things that we've also been working on is the idea that now, since computers are faster and the AI models are more efficient, we're actually working on video-based detection. So these are some videos that we record with our drones, and then we give them to the AI model, and you can see how they highlight different banana plants that are showing yellowing symptoms across fields. These videos are actually from some work that we have been doing in Peru. So you can see here that the first video was sort of the drone standing still, and in the second video, it's more the drone flying over the field and highlighting different plants. And in the end, both of these tools, both Tumaini and both the drone platform, have helped us create a database. Along with also, we've added pre-existing databases. And right now, at the moment, we have over 70,000 mapped plants worldwide, which 15,000 of these were mapped in 2024. And we have information related towards bananas and different hotspots in over 18 countries worldwide. And then finally, so we again had the idea of how people could access this information, how people could see it. So we have our own Tumaini website. So here in this website, it's open access. You can access it at tumainiaiapp.org. It's going to ask you to create an account, but after that, we give you access, and then you can easily see the different hotspots and different diseases in the world, or that we have mapped during the app, and that people have also been mapping through Tumaini. And then you can select also the year of incidence, and it gives you sort of and the way you can visualize it is very similar to when we had COVID. So through sort of disease hotspots. So the larger the circle and the brighter the color, that means the higher the density of infected plants in a region. And then just to finish, so overall, the idea is that we have our AI banana powered system, again, with the aerial platform that we use the deep learning detection, the ground level platform that uses Tumaini map, and it all results in disease mapping. And overall, this generates or helps solve the problem of scouting. And also it provides a more efficient monitoring, the confirmation of diseases and pests more efficiently, and eventually cost and time reduction. And of course, with all of this information that we have been generating over the past few years, it gives us the opportunity to start thinking about right now and in the future of more advanced data analysis and the combination of Tumaini with even more tools that can provide overall general good. So if you're interested in downloading Tumaini, you can actually scan right now the QR codes here. It's available for iOS and also for Android. We released the iOS version last year. Right now, Tumaini, the current version only works if you have internet access, but we are almost done implementing the offline version, which we think is going to be very helpful because it's going to allow users to use the app in the field without the need of an internet connection. All of the AI models will be running on your cell phone. So that's something that we're currently working on, should be coming very soon. So thank you very much, and I'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We now open the floor for questions, and I see one already in the Q&A. What has been the average confidence level in interpreting disease symptoms reusing the Tumaini app? What level of ground truthing is undertaken to validate the interpretation made by the app?
So in terms of, for example, I can, it's two questions. So the first question is in terms of ground truthing. So for example, Tumaini was built using over 35,000 images, and all of these images were actually annotated or validated by expert plant pathologists in the field. So most of these, or a great part of these, were actually accompanied by also with the lab tests. So this means that the information that we collected was also, we had the ground truth that was the actual disease that was present. And then in terms of confidence or how precise Tumaini can be, it really depends on the plant part that you're working with. For example, we found that with the pseudostem or even the banana bunch, the confidence and the accuracy levels, it's over 90%. But then in other plant parts, which tend to be more difficult, like for example, the leaf, which is sort of related to the example that I was showing before, that yellowing on a leaf can be a variety of diseases, then the confidence drops down to 70-75%. So that's why we also started to implement sort of the step-by-step detection, just not to base us on only one symptom, but sort of take a collection of symptoms and you can give a more precise diagnostic based on that.
Thank you. We do have another question in the chat, and it's coming from Kadian Banton. If a disease is detected, who will this information be shared with?
So that's actually something that we've worked on. So in this case, right now we're keeping the information completely private. So only the person who detects the disease has access to information and to a GPS location. But there's something that is very cool that we've done, and is that sort of we've taken the same idea from like social media, like for example, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, and you can sort of create a list of people who you want to share that information with. So for example, let's say I'm part of a farmers association, and then I want my neighbor farmer also to know if I found any infected plants in my lot, then I can register him sort of as a friend or as a partner, and then he can have access to my information. Or if, for example, we've also had experience working with different teams from NPPOs. And what they do is that they use the app and they sort of share the information just between the 5 or 10 people who are in charge of field scouting. So in this case, most of the information is kept private, unless, of course, we also had users who say, I would like to share this information, I would like to make it public. So that's how also we can post it on the website.
Thanks for that. Christina Pula asks, how long does it take for the AI to learn the pest and disease patterns to be able to diagnose sick plants? And she has another question. Can this be applied to other plants like papaya, coconuts?
Yeah, so the first question in terms of time, for example, the most consuming time part is actually collecting the data, because you need a very large data set in order to perform this. And this will mostly depend on how you're collecting the data. If you have, for example, a large team of 10, 20 people who have access to a lot of this information, or actually if you already have the data, then you've pretty much done the toughest part, because training the model will normally take you a day. And then after that, you have to sort of validate and see if it's detecting correctly. And then if not, then maybe collect some more data and retrain. But the training process per se, it would take you 1 or 2 days, and then validation, and depending on that, can take you maybe a week. But again, it's if you have the data. And in terms of other crops, yes, Tumaini actually, this same technology we've applied to common bean. Actually, right now there's a variation, or I like to call it a sister of the Tumaini app. It's called Tumaini Beans. It's also available for Android and iOS. And this same technology has also been applied to other crops such as cassava, also. We've used it in clitoria flowers for counting beans, counting flowers and pods in clitoria. So the applications are many, and it's highly transferable to other crops.
Thanks. We have another question. Jalen Good is asking, do you have any information about the relative accuracy between the success percentage of disease identification and relation to the particular stage, early, mid, or late of disease development?
Yeah, so we haven't established how do I say this, a numerical correlation between, for example, how good the detection is and the stage of the disease in the crop. One thing I can say, and it makes a lot of sense, is that the more visible or the more advanced the disease is, the easier it is for Tumaini to predict, because obviously the symptoms become more evident as it is in the more advanced stages. One thing that we did actually try, but we did it with drones. It was to try to use multispectral imaging to see if we could find earlier disease detection in some banana plants, but the results were a little bit mixed. We found that for this technology that we're using, multispectral doesn't have right now the best resolution. So yeah, I think basically the result is we have to keep testing. We would like at some point to start working with hyperspectral cameras, and I think maybe that could be the way that we should go towards if we want to think more about earlier detection, especially with plants that haven't started showing symptoms yet. But yeah, that's basically it.
And there's another part of the question is that it was mentioned that there's a 90% success rate of accurate identification. But how much of that can you confirm is possibly in the early stage of disease development?
That's a good question. So in our case, the 90%, what it means is sort of related to our data set. So in our case, the data set that we have is data with very evident symptoms. So this is basically when the model says, or when you have a sort of a 90% accuracy detection, what it's saying is that based on the data that we have trained it, it can say with a 90% confidence that this disease that is present is what is similar to the information that it's learned from. So of course, if you show the same model, maybe a plant part with very early symptoms, it's likely going to get confused, or it's likely going to identify it as another disease. So again, the phenological stage is something very important, something that's very tricky with bananas, particularly as a crop. But I think it's something that along the line, as this technology continues to improve, and again, with different types of camera sensors, I think it could be more oriented towards each time trying to make better predictions in earlier stages of the disease.
I think you answered the next question, but I'll still ask it. What is the accuracy of the AI analysis, and is it prone to hallucinating?
Yeah, so again, the accuracy really depends on the plant part and how similar the symptoms are that you're detecting to symptoms that we have trained the models with. That's why also we tried to collect a lot of data to train the model, so we can have sort of learn from most cases and what's most going to be commonly found in when you go out into the field. And then in terms of hallucinating, I think, yeah, that's something that's one of the concerns with AI, especially with these things that a lot of times they seem sort of like magic. And for example, that's a good question, because sometimes when we show small farmers these tools, they say they don't really trust them. So one of the things that we've tried to actually do with the app is to build it in a way that it sort of also takes the farmer's experience into account. So that's why I was showing previously that when you take a picture now, it sort of asks you, okay, what I'm detecting is this, what are you seeing with your own eyes? And sort of interact in this way. Also, it provides a more accurate detection, and it also makes it a little bit more trustable or more relatable. So that's also some of the things that we've been working on, improving user experience and things like that.
Ananda is asking, can it be used for rice?
For rice, it's tricky because rice and forages, they are a different crop. We would have to see. more of what you have in mind. For example, we do have a lot of projects in the division that use AI, but not specifically this branch of AI, but use drone imaging and more towards the side of machine learning with rice. For example, disease classification in hoja blanca or in blast. That's some of the current work that we are also doing in the division. So for rice, we would have to see exactly what you have in mind, but I think it's possible.
And the final question that I have here is what infrastructure, equipment is needed as part of the process to develop the app? And also what expertise is needed in terms of skill set? And okay, so you could go ahead. I was gonna ask the third question, but you can go ahead.
Okay,
So it's infrastructure and equipment needs
Mhm.
and expertise.
Okay, so I think if someone wanted to do this, and you would have to first decide what you're going to capture your images with, if it's going to be cell phone, drone. So you need in this sense sort of like a sensor. Then the next step would be thinking where you're going to process this information. So for example, if you're going to do it on cloud, if you're going to do it on a server, then you would have to see where you're going to do the computing based more specifically on what you want to do. And then if you're looking for someone with the skill set, nowadays you can look for someone specifically who works as a deep learning engineer or computer vision engineer or AI engineer in general, or even someone who has experience in computer science. Should be able to do this. And then I think also it's very important to involve someone who is a plant pathologist or an agronomist to validate a lot of this of what is working, of like what the diseases are showing. Because for example, in my case, I am an electronics engineer and I've had to learn a lot about bananas, but thankfully I've also had people who can guide me and help me in this process, and also help me make sure that the data and the things that we're doing make sense in terms of agronomically. So I think that's also an important thing. And then one last thing is that if you want to create some sort of app or website or something, then you need also to think about how you're going to deploy that. Where are you going to store the models, and how are they going to run? If you're going to run them locally, if you're going to run them on the website, and those types of things.
Thank you. And the final question is, what's the overall cost in terms of developing the app?
Cost, that's a good question, because cost is relative. But I can say that, for example, over the past 6 years with Tumaini, it should be, I mean, including salaries and everything, it should be close to 100K or even more.
That's US dollars?
Yes.
And I'm seeing one more question here. Can this app be used to identify disease in all banana varieties?
Something that we're working on right now is actually also seeing how, well, there's two things there. The first thing that we're working on is to see if Tumaini can actually differentiate one banana variety from another. We're actually working on collecting data for that right now. From what I think it's going to be very difficult to tell one variety from another, because some are very similar. And then the next question, and how diseases look in different varieties. I don't know, me, because the data that we have collected for building Tumaini was mostly, I think it's Cavendish and Gross Mitchell. So these are the most present banana varieties that are in commercially available. So in most cases that we tested, of course it works, but when you have maybe a very specific variety, I don't know how Tumaini has been working. So that would be also something interesting to test. And again, maybe if somebody tests this and has some comments, we can meet. My email is there, and you can just write us an email, and we're always very interested in learning new things and seeing how Tumaini can continue improving.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you for that very, very interesting presentation and fielding all the questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much again for the invitation, and looking forward to hearing the other presentations now.
Just before you go, I just want to say we have a comment from Richard Rampasad, who said it was an excellent presentation on the app. and he is looking forward to some more specific work happening in the Caribbean.
Okay, great. Yeah. Actually, one thing I didn't mention with the in the presentation, but is that we actually through several bilateral projects, for example, especially with bananas, we have been doing trainings across Latin America. For example, last year, over the past couple of years, we did trainings in Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia with not only using the app, but also how to fly drones and how to improve surveillance in your banana crops. So again, if this is something that is interesting for anybody in this meeting, well, you can also contact me or Dr. Michael, and we can discuss further.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, no
We're
problem.
moving
Thank you.
along now to presentation number 4, and we're going to invite Mr. Jefferson Valencia, who is a research team leader in multifunctional landscape, to present on Agri. It's a platform used to identify sites with rainwater harvesting potential. Mr. Valencia.
Okay, good morning. Could you hear me well?
Good morning. We're hearing you fine, and we're
Oh,
seeing your screen as well.
perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen right now. I don't see, oh, it's here. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Yes, we are seeing your screen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. And really nice presentation so far of my colleagues. Amazing to know more about the work that my colleagues are doing here. So I'm gonna present this tool that is called Agri Water Sources. It's a decision support tool to identify superficial water sources. It was initially thought for a small irrigation project, but it has, transformed so far through the different implementations in the different countries that I'm about to show you. So this is Jefferson Valencia. I am a research team leader in the multifunctional landscapes level here at the Alliance of Bioversity International and CIAT. I have been working with CIAT for the last 15 years. This is a project, a tool that has been funded by different institutions, USAID, FAO, and also the Caribbean Development Bank. So what is Agri? Agri, as it stands for water for irrigation, or agua para riego in Spanish. It was initially piloted in the western part of Honduras with the support of USAID, and at the beginning was developed as a standalone tool. We call it desktop tool that was working on ArcGIS. But then it was transformed because of the support of FAO through a web GIS-based decision support system. And this tool provides information about possible water sources, superficial water sources that can be identified by technicians that support, the farmers in the different countries where this tool is implemented so far. The two kind of sources that this tool provides is, the first one is, and the most important one, is a potential size for the construction of reservoirs. I mean, for rainwater harvesting projects where naturally water can be, collected. I mean, it's a superficial runoff, surface runoff, and also the rain that drops directly to the reservoir or to the place. And the second one is superficial water sites, but in this case, of course, is water intakes. I mean, water deviation, where people can deviate water from a specific streams and can, supply the water system that they are normally using. What is behind of all of this? Of course, you really know about all these, kind of characteristics: climate change, degradation of natural resources. The pressure that right now is tremendously increasing in because of the population growth in the water resources, and all the kind of challenges that are dependent on the characteristics of each territory where this tool can be implemented. So Agri was born with the challenge of increasing water availability for small farming, to increase their climate resilience. And that was the first idea in the 6 departments of Honduras. But then this tool has been implemented in different countries. So the 3 main components where this tool focuses on, the first one is, I already mentioned it, suitable sites for rainwater harvesting. The second one is suitable sites for water intakes, where you can deviate water from the streams, near your area of interest. And the second one is cost-effective path for conducting water by gravity. Why? Because as I mentioned it already, this idea was focus on the implementation in areas where a small-scale farming is carried out. So what we want to provide is this kind of conduction path that is just providing the water by gravity, and is not necessary or is not needed to use fuels in order to pump the water through the pipelines. So where is it available right now? As I mentioned already, its beginning was in the western part of Honduras, but then because of the support of FAO, we implemented it in the 7 countries of Central America. Then through a second stage, we implemented it in these 3 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. This means Ethiopia, Kenya, and Rwanda. Then we implemented it in 5 countries in Latin America: Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Barbados, Jamaica, and Grenada. But in Grenada, it was a joint effort with the Caribbean Development Bank. In that island, we first implemented the tool as the desktop version that I already mentioned, and then working together with FAO and the Caribbean Development Bank, we implemented it, we deployed the online version for this country. So right now in the Caribbean, the tool is implemented in these 5 countries that you can see right now in the screen. And lastly, we implemented this tool in the northern part of Argentina. We expect to continue expanding the tool to the central and southern parts of the country. Let's see how's everything going. Something that is normally that people normally ask is why this is not implemented in Colombia. I am a Colombian. I'm based in Colombia, but unfortunately, so far we have not implemented it here. But I still have my expectation that sooner we can implement it. So through all the stages that I already mentioned to you, we have deployed the tool in these countries that you are seeing right now. So remember that Agri focuses on 2 main components: superficial water sources, and these are water intakes or water harvesting. So right now, this is the availability of sites, of potential sites that have been identified because of the implementation of this approach in the different countries that you are seeing right now. Of course, this is very dependent on the extension of the territory. For example, if you analyze here, Argentina and Ethiopia are the countries with the most numbers, with the biggest numbers because of the extension of the territory. Especially, for example, in Argentina has a lot of water intake sites, but again, because of the topography, it's really difficult to identify their sites for rainwater harvesting projects. So everything here is very dependent on the topography in order to provide this kind of results for each country. So of course, it's really important here, the field validation, the human aspect, the ground trust validation is always important. We have validated the tool in different countries. I will show you in the next slide exactly, but it has been a really enriching experience where we can contact local actors when we learn from them and we exchange knowledge and we are learning from the validation process. Of course, it's also important that the people that are behind the scenes developing the tool also go to the country, go to the field and learn from all this implementation, and they can realize how these programming things are realizing in the field and are benefiting the communities there, And of course, for this validation, we implement some kind of digital tools for carrying out the process. So the field validation, we have validated the tool in terms of, for example, Central America, we have validated the tool in Honduras and Belize. Then in terms of Latin, in the Caribbean, sorry, we have implemented it in Antigua and Barbuda and Barbados, Jamaica, and the 3 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, and also in Argentina. So through these validation processes, we have validated 256 water harvesting sites, and in terms of water intakes, we have validated 180 sites. So in terms of, if we focus right now on water harvesting, we normally analyze 3 main characteristics of the site: water accumulation, clay content, and concavity. Of course, there is something really important here. The information that we normally use is regional, global data sources, but if we, in a straightforward way, we can get local information from the country or from the territory where we are implementing the tool, of course, we can improve the analysis, and of course, the result will be much better and more reliable. For example, in the case of Grenada, we could obtain a lot of information from the country itself, so we could see the difference when we implemented it at the beginning with the regional global data sources in comparison to this last implementation with local information there. So by analyzing these 3 variables, you can see, for example, the number of sites in terms of water harvesting, that, for example, in the case of water accumulation, from 256 sites, 82 sites, when we went there, we could realize that 82 sites had water accumulation at the moment where we visited the site. Also, we analyzed the clay content, and these are the different, results by each of the category. But something important here is how these 3 variables or characteristics combine amongst themselves, So here on the left, on the top right chart right now that you are seeing, the most important aspects are the 3 blue characteristics or classes that you are seeing here in the donut chart. So if you analyze, it's around 79% of the count of the site where we have validated the tool have these 3 main characteristics, which are the most important ones in order to say, okay, this is a right point, a right side to continue and to implement that kind of project. In terms of water intakes, it is really important for us seasonality, So I'm sorry, what's happening here? I don't know. Wait, okay. Okay, so the most important part here is that from the 180 points that we have validated, 95% of them were drainage streams, drainage channels where normally water flows through the channel, So then after we validate this, then we analyze if that channel contains water at the moment of the visit, or we consult with people around, living around, and we consult maybe, okay, at this moment, this channel doesn't contain water, water is not flowing through the channel, but maybe then in the rainy season, water flows over there. Because the most important part here is that people can obtain water in the rainy season in order to use it in the dry season. So what is the criteria behind of Agri World Sources? We have on the left side the green boxes that you are seeing here. These are the characteristics, the variable that we are looking for. These are the biophysical selection criteria. These are the criteria that say, okay, this is a really good point. This is more feasible than this one or not, So of course, in terms of water harvesting, it's really important. The runoff, the slope, we are looking especially areas where there are not steep slopes. Then we analyze the clay content of the soil, because what we are expecting is the water accumulates naturally in the site and the water infiltration rate is very low. The wetness index that is calculated based on the digital erosion model, so where we can identify normally which are the areas that normally water accumulates there. The curvature is really important, because what we want to avoid is the movement of land, and also hydrological units. We also consider this layer, because in some moments, in some areas, these hydrological units or areas have a graded infiltration rate. So if the water naturally accumulates there on the surface, then the infiltration is going to be so much that we will lose the water. So it's not a feasible site in this kind of analysis. Also, if we see right now the black boxes on the top, these are the biophysical restrictive factors. While the green ones say which site is more suitable than another one, the black boxes say if you can implement a project or a water harvesting site or not, okay? So in this case, what we are trying to avoid here are, for example, riparian areas, different kind of land use, land cover, like urban areas or naturally protected areas, distance to international boundaries, for example, because there are some cases where there are some kind of social issues or, near the international boundaries, and of course, again, a distance to geological faults and small areas of flow accumulation we also try to avoid, because what we want is that in reality, water accumulates on a site. So finally, we implement a rainwater harvesting suitability index based on that equation that you are seeing there. And after we calculated the suitability of each point, then we make like kind of water balance on the site, and we determine the rainwater harvesting potential on an annual basis. Then based on this, we discriminate, we filter the sites, and we provide the final points to the user. So now I'm going to show you the use of the platform. This is the URL if you are interested to visit it, in visiting them. So the platform components right now here, there are, let's say, the modules that you are seeing here in the middle, potential sites, selection by polygon, and selection by location. But then potential sites is divided into different, components to different tools. So then you can have the potential sites analysis, and also you can see other tools that are water supply and demand analysis, reservoir analysis, and drainage area information. All of these are components or tools that are focused on how the reservoir behave, which are the kind of reservoir that I can construct in the site, and so on. So I'm going to explain right now each of the tools. Quickly. The first one is potential site. So in this first implementation, what we are looking for is, depending on a location that you establish on the map, or maybe you can provide the latitude and longitude directly, on the screen. You can enter it manually. So you will obtain a bunch of sites around this strategic site that you are looking for. So this site can be, for example, a farm, can be let's say a tank where you want to get the water to, and what you are looking is sites around that comply with some kind or meet some kind of criteria that you establish, like the difference, like the elevation difference between the water source and the site, because what you want to do is to bring the water by gravity. So you need a difference elevation, a difference in elevation in order to bring the water by gravity. You also determine, the search radius, and you can, customize your run in order to obtain different sites. So then what you are going to obtain is the sites with the different, the orange lines are these cost-effective paths to bring the water by gravity from the water source to the final site, to the destination site. And also you will get the drainage area of each of the sites, because it's really important to know which is going to be the area that is draining the water to the site, to the potential sites, in order maybe to protect the area, to conserve the area, or to establish some kind of practices there. The second one is this tool that is called water supply and demand analysis, where you can enter manually your monthly demand. Let's say already which is the amount of water that you will need for each specific month, so you can enter these values directly. Or maybe you can define a cropping system where you say, okay, I'm gonna crop this, I'm gonna cultivate this crop from this month to this month in this area. And I mean, when I say this area, is you enter the extension, the area of that crop where it's going to be cultivated, and you can determine different kind of crops. And based on that, we determine the water requirements of that cropping system, and we compare with the water potential. I mean, with the water offer of each site is providing, you know, or could provide. Based on that, so we determine which are the potential sites that can meet that water demand. So then, after we analyze which are the feasible sites, you know, we can. I'm sorry, I missed this slide. Yeah, I was thinking about that. So after you determine which or the tool provides a kind of determination of characterization of the site, you will see something like this, where you can see which is the reservoir size of each of the potential sites that meet that that meets that water demand, and provide the recommended reservoir size in order to meet that water demand again. So, and also you can see the reservoir behavior. So something important here that you need to provide, for example, the end of the rainy season, because after the end of the rainy season is the moment where the reservoir starts to fill in, you know, to be recharged. So you can see on the charts on the bottom of this picture how the reservoir will behave. I mean, how the storage of the reservoir will behave through the month, starting, you know, 1 month after the end of the rainy season. Then also, it's also important, as I mentioned it before, to determine the drainage area and to know the characteristics of this drainage area, because this can be also a kind of helpful information to determine which will be the final site where you will implement a project. Because it's really important to know, for example, which kind of land use and land cover are over there. Also the elevation, the slope, the soil clay content, you know, on those in these sites. And also we provide something that is called the core number, that these are a value that can use for hydraulic analysis and so on, in order to determine the surface runoff. So then we also identify some kind of needs from the different uses. So we also provide a tool where, okay, the previous analysis is where you want to analyze everything around one point, but here you just draw a polygon on the map, and the tool will provide the potential sites that are located within that polygon, you know, and you can do it manually here, or maybe you can determine those points by the political administrative boundaries of each country. So you select, for example, the department, and then the municipality or something like that, and then you will see how is the distribution of the points in this polygon where you are analyzing. So what is this information? What this tool right now under this kind of analysis is providing is the feasibility of any kind of implementation, you know, of project implementation, depending on the area that you are analyzing. So you can compare. So maybe I can go here, or maybe I can go here, without going directly into the analysis of a specific point. So current use and future plans. As I already mentioned, it's implemented in 4 Caribbean countries: Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, St. Kitts and Nevis, Jamaica, and that was implemented through the Resilient Caribbean Initiative. This was funded by FAO, and also with the support of Mexico, and also in Grenada with the support of the Caribbean Development Bank. We have continued this information was provided by FAO, but we have also contributed to this kind of implementation, or this kind of ongoing work. Additional training was provided to Antigua and Barbuda to support feasibility studies for rainwater harvesting reservoirs. Future plans, this was information provided by the FAO. They are planning to scaling up new projects depending on the different regions, and with the different kind of donors, you know, with different kind of funds. I put St. Vincent and the Grenadines in red color, and also Dominican Republic in red color, because right now they are not implemented. The tool is not implemented there, but we expect to have it implemented. Maybe let's say the more feasible, or the most likely opportunity that we have right now is the implementation of the tool in Dominican Republic, because right now we know that FAO and also the World Bank are talking to the ministry there in order to get, you know, the clearance for the implementation of the project. So yeah, as you can see right now, there are different future plans and ongoing efforts in order to implement projects based on the information that this tool can provide freely on these countries. We have also collaborated in different efforts for training and the site selection. And what we expect is that based on all this information and the training that we have provided so far, then reservoir characterization and in the future in all these countries, reservoir constructions can be executed. So the final objective of all this is, you know, support decision making on the identification of reservoir location, on the analysis of the volumes that can be stored in this kind of reservoirs, and also the environmental impact that this kind of implementation can be, you know, carry out. Finally, of course, this is a continued collaboration for expansion. We expect that we can continue the collaboration through the different countries of the Caribbean countries and also in other areas of the world. Just finalizing here, these are the references. You know, you can go there. I will provide the slides to you, so you can share freely. Just feel free to share this slide to anyone. Finally, these are the two teams, you know, that have been participating in the implementation of the project. On the left, you are seeing here the staff from the Alliance of Bioversity International. On the right, Jacinto Buenfil, that is a focal point from FAO, and he is located in Barbados. I just forgot. I also the focal point for the Caribbean with the focal point of the war, of the joint war with the Caribbean Development Bank has been through Luther. I forgot his last name. Maybe you may know him. So yeah, it's amazing. Also, there is one person that he was strategic. His name is Luis Loyola. He's a former FAO staff. Right now, he's working for the World Bank, and he is supporting the implementation of this tool right now in the Dominican Republic. So this is everything. I'm open to any questions, and thank you so much again for this nice invitation.
Thank you so very much for this presentation, Mr. Valencia. It really addresses a key issue for us in the Caribbean, which is water resource management. So thank you. In terms of questions, there is one. Can persons or institutions in Trinidad and Tobago be trained in using and applying this tool for potential sites for water harvesting?
I'm sorry. I got an interruption here. Could you please repeat the question? Sorry for that.
Sure. Can persons or institutions in Trinidad and Tobago be trained in using and applying this tool for potential sites for water harvesting?
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, right now, as I already said, the tool is not implemented there. You know, so in order to use the tool for that specific territory, what we need is the implementation of the tool. But any person right now can go there, you know, sign up, and use the tool for the countries where the tool is implemented. The platform is in a Spanish and English version, so anyone can use. We have different user manuals, but unfortunately right now the tool cannot be used directly for Trinidad and Tobago. In previous discussions with Luther from CDB, we were about to continue the expansion of the tool to different countries, and to 5 additional countries in the Caribbean where Trinidad and Tobago was included, but unfortunately the final discussions, I mean, we couldn't reach a final agreement on that because I don't know, something happened in the bank, but we have you know, all the hope that we will continue the expansion of the tool to the different countries in the Caribbean.
Thank you. There was another question, which was to share your contacts, but I know you did that at the end of your presentation, so I'm hoping that Richard, you were able to get it, but we are also compiling a list of the presenters and their contact details, which we will share at the end of this webinar.
Okay,
I'm not seeing any more questions. So that means, Mr. Valencia, you did a very good detailed presentation.
Hopefully, because right now I'm worried. I'm worried because I saw a lot of questions before, but hopefully my presentation was clear. Thank you so much. Have a nice, amazing day.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for making this a very interactive session so far. We move on to presentation number 5, where we'll have Mr. Christian Field, a specialist in climate action, and Dr. Aiton Zinger, I hope I pronounced your name properly, thematic leader in climate action, to present on geopharma. That's a knowledge community channel.
Yes, thank you very much. So let me start right away with presenting myself. My name is Christian Feil. I'm part of the CIAT and Alliance for Bioversity team since around 9 years now. And together with Dr. Anton Eitzinger, who is also present today, we will present a tool that we have been working on in the last years. It's called geopharma, and as a little part of it, or the biggest part is the front-end tool called MyGeofarm. So my role is the one of a software engineer. Dr. Anton Eitzinger is the technical lead of the project. And yeah, I will share my screen to get started with the presentation. Let's see. So, yes. I think you should be able to view my screen by now, right? Please, can you confirm quickly?
Yes, we're seeing your screen, but if you can put it in slideshow mode.
Sure, right away.
Thank you, very good, yeah.
That one away. All right, so perfect. So yeah, let me start with a few quick facts about the system. So at geopharma, we started developing the system back in the day in 2016. And as you can imagine, with CIAT, we have a lot of different research projects all over the globe. And back in the day, there was always the need for a system for data collection, especially offline data collection. So there were a few options available in these days. So we started out to create a platform for that. geopharma in the beginning consisted of a progressive web app that addressed two common problems that were present in nearly all the research projects that we were involved so far. That was data collection and knowledge management. And since every research project has a little bit different needs and requirements, a little bit different context, we needed to divide the system to address these specific requirements. So we created something that we call channels. So it's a channel-based system, and each project or each community, be it on a specific thematic context or a regional context, gets like this particular channel or community. Within this community, so very often we encountered a situation that farmers were organized in mostly local chat groups, like in WhatsApp, to communicate among themselves and share some insights. But there's a small drawback on this. So it's not very transparent if the moderators of these WhatsApp groups are not very active or are a little bit biased, maybe, then it's not open to every farmer of the region. So we wanted to address this by implementing a form of knowledge management and communication in the system. So we integrated a forum-like setup functionality where people can discuss, people can upload materials. And also there's a direct feedback between the farmers. So if one farmer has a question about a specific crop or a specific disease, then it's not always necessary that some scientists or expert answers it. It can also be his neighbor who might have experience in this area and directly address this question. So the community aspect was very important. And the other thing was data collection. Data collection, we started off with a survey-like tool, very similar to survey tools like you might know, like SurveyMonkey or others, but with a big benefit of offline collection and a geographic relation. So most data that we collect in the field is always related to a geographic context. And yeah, our tool that we started off with surveys and later on farm forms, I will talk about this in detail more, is always related to a specific geographic context. The tool also includes a small peer-to-peer communication so that farmers can directly interact among themselves, like in a small chat functionality. Our system allows interoperability through API integration. And it's a very modular approach. So like the two or three presentations before, we heard about MyFarmTrees. MyFarmTrees is actually an extension on the GeoPharma system. So it was a set of models that we created specifically for that, but they are closely related. And that's also a big benefit. So if we encounter in some research projects new requirements that we didn't integrate so far, then we can easily create new models, activate them in these specific channels, and yeah, without disturbing existing projects or existing communities. We have a very strict role management. So our basic roles are the moderator, which is kind of an administrator of the project. In most contexts, we work with field extensionists. So that would be our facilitator role that normally visit in the field different farmers. And in the end, we also wanted to emphasize on the farmer actually to get them involved directly. Because what we realized from other contexts or other projects is that there are a lot of organizations going into the field, collecting their data, having hours-long interviews with the farmers, and then they say goodbye, and the farmer has nothing in his hand that helps him in his specific situation. So we wanted to establish a continuous communication with the farmers, between experts and farmers. And with our system, we also try to make it as easy and as accessible as possible to get him directly involved. So we had a couple of projects in Africa where we tested this extensively. There was a lot of interactivity in some channels. We realized it's very important to accompany these discussions. So if we just hand over a tool and let them have it, it's not going to happen much. But if you accompany it a little bit with uploading information, be it tutorials on crop management or some information sheets or whatever it is, then people get engaged and also participate out of their own interest. So currently we have our dashboard-like progressive web app, which is among the address of geopharma.org. And in the next slides, I will present our mobile app more in detail, which is more dedicated to the field work. So it's called My GeoFarm. And yeah, it's our mobile front end for GeoPharma. It's farmer-oriented, so easy to use, accessible, multi-language. We have it currently in English, Spanish, French, I think Vietnamese, and also Swahili in Africa. So far, we have collected around 6,000 farms and with around 5,000 fields in these farms digitized. It's cross-platform, currently available in Android only, but with the comment that we plan to also include it for iOS in the coming months, hopefully. Maybe it takes a little bit longer depending on the workload. It's offline first, so everything beyond creating a user account and joining a channel is working offline. All the data collection, all the farm creation, all field digitizing or rather farm management works offline. So we have a data synchronization system that every time you connect to the internet, it uploads offline data stored in the device and downloads potential changes, like if there's a new survey or there was some edits to an existing form, then you get the update. Yeah. How's the normal user journey? So in most cases, we work with extensionists that visit several farms. So first off would be creating a user account, getting either verified as a facilitator, like an extensionist, or if you're a farmer, you can start right off. Then you need to select a community in your region, join it, and then basically you can start off. So you would first create a virtual image of your farm with some basic information. You can access the community discussion under the community tab. And yeah, then there are several other modules for data collection, for production management, parcel digitalization, and others. Some of these modules we will have a look at in detail. So this would be like, these are some screenshots of the application. As you can see, we have on the bottom, which is in the red rectangle, there are 4 main tabs, which is the farms, so farm management. Then there's community, which would be the forum and discussion. We have the chat, which is peer-to-peer communication, and some normal some functionality that you would also know from other applications like account management, configuration, and so on. Let me walk you quickly through some of the core functionalities. So the peer-to-peer chat is like it's a simple chat functionality. You can start with a one-on-one chat, or you can start a little group chat, upload additional materials like images. It's a little clone of WhatsApp, certainly not that sophisticated, but for private communication, that's our way to go within this mobile app. Under the community, we split it into 2 sections. So you can see here the wiki and the Q&A. Wiki is mostly a kind of top-down knowledge sharing platform. So you can upload all kind of materials like videos, PDFs, presentations, or just text information, images, where you can instruct farmers to implement new production methods, or how to treat diseases, whatever the actual issue in this region is. Q&A is more interactive, so it's if some farmer has a particular question about a certain disease, about a certain practice, then he can just share it there. It's open, so everyone can see it, and everyone also can respond, right? And yeah, these are the knowledge networking tools, these 2, community and chat. And then we have the big part about farm management. So if you're a farmer, normally you only will have one farm, your own farm, that you're responsible for and that you manage. If you're an extensionist, then you might have kind of a list of farms. So you might visit 20, 30, maybe even more farms regularly. And so you need to access all the data on these farms that are assigned to you. So once these forms are digitized, then inside the forms you have some functionalities for management. You can see here a collection of modules that are activated. Some are core modules like productions, field management, tasks, and the farm team. And others are optional that can be activated or deactivated, like climate, for example. We have one on soil health and several others. Yeah, let's move on. So one very important thing is one necessity among pretty much all projects is we need some tier references. So we need first to know where the farm is, which is like when you create the farm, it's just a point. And then most data is actually related to the fields. So we need a way to digitize these fields. We have two ways how to do that. One is simply by using satellite image and have the user draw like the parcel. It doesn't need to be a rectangle. It can have as many corners as you want, but it's all image based. So if you're some users struggle a little bit with when they see the farm from tops, like from a satellite image. That's why we have the other option. Also, if you're offline, you can make use of GPS tracking. In this case, you would simply walk around the perimeter of the field, and GPS tracks your track where you walked, and finally you end up with a similar shape. Yeah, this is about the farm fields, and once we have this data, we can make certain analysis based on that. The other big part is the production management. So the idea here is to get insight on what is actually produced on the farm. So you can create as many productions on a farm as you want. It's normally based on different species. So you select, do you grow rice? Do you grow potatoes, sugarcane, whatever. So we have a huge, a long list of potential productions. It's not specific to just or limited to just a few ones. Also, if you encounter that, I don't know, there's a species that we have not included in the list, we can easily add it. So it's a growing list, and it's not a big deal to add additional species. And based on this production, then we are currently developing some additional functionalities, like managing the production better, getting some metrics, some insights on financials, on stocks, on like inventory, on usage, how much fertilizer, how many pesticides, how many, like a little bit of a calculator that is supposed to help the farmer manage his production better, and finally also allows maybe for some recommendations how it can be improved, how it can be made more sustainable, and so on. Yeah. Then the other core functionality is our tasks module. Tasks is currently mostly about data collection. So what's the big difference between a common survey tool, like let's say SurveyMonkey or Google Forms or something like that, and our tool? If you use an external tool, it's not, or it's very hard to have a continuous evaluation of a situation. You go once in the field, collect the data, and then you go back as scientists, you run your analysis, finalize some reports, and that's it. But the next time you go to the field, you don't have the data available anymore. So you would have to repeat a lot of questions, or maybe you remember a little bit, or have some paper with you that help you remember. But with our tool, you can repeat the same form. So you can walk there half yearly or yearly and check on how things developed. And also, you know what's going on. You can have a look back at the last occurrence of the form, check the data, and have an immediate insight on what the farmer responded back in the day. It's a dynamically survey tool, so we have a bunch of different question types, like, I don't know, 15, 20 question types where you can choose from, and you organize them according to your needs, create your forms. And yeah, once you collected them in the field and data is uploaded back again to the server, you can access it either through the dashboard and download it as a CSV, or through the API and collect your own dashboards or visualizations as you want. And the last big core module is the access management within the farms. So normally per farm, you have at least one person responsible for it. It can be more. It can be both, like the extensionists and the farmer himself, if both want to work on the same farm. And we also in the dashboard have some functionality to assign facilitators to farms. Regarding data privacy, only the members within this farm has access to all the data, and in the end the moderator, so like the administrator in the project. Also, we have some ongoing modules. I don't want to emphasize too much on that. So one would be integrating climate data, so just giving some insights on climate forecasts for the next days, up to a few weeks, even seasonal in the future is possible, and also maybe some climatology. So what's the usual climate looks like at the farm's location. Also, a smaller module would be like a kind of a log entry. So every time someone visits a farm, he can create a small log and just capture what happened in this visit, marking maybe some locations of interest, giving some recommendations, adding a few photos or GPS points, and then the next visit he can look back at it and recapture what happened before. Also, like we saw before, once the polygons for the fields are created, we have the possibility to run some additional analysis. So for example, now we are in some other projects where deforestation is a key aspect in this project. So we will use, for example, these polygons to have a look at tree coverage changes by comparing the polygons with some external data sets. But also other possibilities are thinkable, like including some soil analysis or soil data, be it directly captured in the field or from external sources, including some geomorphology, on inclination, curvature, which might be interesting for erosion, and other things. But this is future talk, so I don't want to spend too much time on that. The core modules are field-proof, so we have already used them a lot in different projects in pretty much all the continents, and yeah. It's an ongoing development. We are continuously including new functionality if there's a new project and if there's enough funds for additional development. But yeah, so this is our system. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. Either me or Dr. Anton Eitzinger will be happy to respond them. And yeah. In any case, we're here for you. Either you ask them now, or you can contact us later through email or some other form, and connect with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very detailed presentation. The floor is now open for questions. Feel free to type it into the question and answer box. like your colleague before, I think you did an excellent job because we have no questions. But I'm sure that if the participants require any further information or clarification, they will reach out to you and we'll be able to share. We are sharing your contact details at the end of the presentation.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very
All
much.
right, so thank you again for a very expansive tool that targets multiple stakeholders and helps in supporting decision making. But before we go, there's a question. Can the app be used to estimate crop yield?
Crop yield, currently not. So we have also, we will see later in some other presentation, we plan to integrate it for crop yield with coffee and a little bit more ahead with cacao. But it will be a module that needs to be included. So we will talk about it. I think, I don't know if it's in the next presentation or maybe in two more.
You're correct. It's coming up.
Yeah, but the idea is, yes, to connect these two systems. So to start with coffee and potentially cacao yield estimations. But these yield estimations would be specific to every crop, because every crop is a little bit different. And in the idea that we have is using AI. You will hear about it. And each crop requires a little bit different setup. So we would have to do it for each crop individually. But yeah, so the idea is there for a small selection of crops. We want to implement it, and maybe in the future we can extend it to a broader set of crops.
Okay, thank you very much. We got a little preview of the next presentation. I would like to introduce Dr. Romain Gautran, who is a postdoctoral fellow in climate action, and he will be presenting on Croppy, which is an AI yield estimate for coffee.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the space. Share my screen. Okay, can you see it? Is it working?
Yes, we are seeing you screen. So
Thank you very much. Okay, so that's the perfect transition. Thank you for the question. So we are a Croppy team. So that's specific topic of yield estimates for coffee. Then we will integrate cocoa. We are also working on mango, but that belongs to the general trend of AI-assisted yield estimate. So Croppy, what is Croppy? So first, maybe why Croppy? So in the world of coffee and in general for crops, everybody's interested in yield, but manual count estimates that have been here for a long time are costly, and also in the case of coffee, because you have many cherries to count, subject to enumerator bias. And what is Croppy? Croppy is a picture-based coffee yield estimate tailored for the context of smallholder coffee growers. So Croppy basically follows the same steps as for the manual count estimate. You have first a sampling stage for the plot. So in your plot, you will sample a few trees, and for those trees, you will instead of manually counting the cherries on branches, you will take a picture, and based on that picture, we will have the automatic count estimate, cherry count estimate, and then with basic data as planting density, we can infer the yield, the coffee yield for the plot. And Croppy at the moment is available through an app, Android app, but it's in maintenance. We have a working chatbot for WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook as well. The only drawback of the chatbot is that it requires connectivity, and we have an API service, so Croppy can be integrated into other apps as with GeoFarmer. So basically, what you do is that you take the picture, as we're seeing, and you have the automatic cherry detection with bounding boxes of different colors depending on the stage, the growing stage of the cherries. So based on that, we generate the estimate. We'll see a little bit after the technical details, but the idea is that then you can facilitate that generation of yield estimates. It's already stored into an ad hoc database. So it's digital, and the main gain is that about 50% faster than the manual count estimates. That comes with a standardized sampling, and you have georeference. So that's potential interest, a lot of factors, cooperative for commercial planning, financial institution for loan and credits. That's a big topic, crop insurance with parametric insurance, exporters, obviously also for commercial planning. And I also added coffee breeders. We are working on a proposal with breeders because they have to estimate the yield for many individual trees. And that's really something which is expensive. And so CROPI has a role in facilitating those estimates. And the idea is that we try as CIAT and part of CGR to ensure that farmers can benefit in a transversal manner the different use cases that we have. Be it with improved negotiation for commercialization, better financial products, and better supply of information for cooperatives. About performance, so it depends on your needs as a user. If you're a breeder, you will need really high accuracy. If you're a farmer, maybe not such a high accuracy. What we can see here on the left-hand side, we have the accuracy of the true harvest parchment coffee against the prediction using manual counts, so the usual method, generated about 2 months before the harvest. And on the right-hand side, we have the same estimates, all parameters equal, but using CROPI. And we have for manual count an error margin about 10%, and for CROPI 30%. So that's really similar, but the main difference is that we are about 50% faster than manual counts, and as I was saying before, we have all the benefits of standardized and digital storage. So a few technical aspects. We have a solution that mixes a field protocol that is the sampling stage. So there is human in the loop, which requires human setup design, and each coffee system is different. So we have to take this into account, and we have the algorithm. But still, that's digital, but requires human intervention. So we have to factor in that aspect. And so the usual sampling protocol that we have for Latin America is about 10 tree per hectare, but for homogeneous technified coffee systems. So again, this is where we need to validate and define with the potential users the accuracy that they target against the cost, depending on the execution time. Obviously, the more you sample, the more accurate you get, but the more expensive it gets as well. Just a few examples of different cropping system, coffee systems. So Colombia, you have shed or no shed systems, but in general highly technified. Arabica in Uganda, you can face a planting system where you don't have a regular planting pattern. You have mixed Arabica, Robusta, and in Honduras, you can have both almost no planting pattern, low technification, and highly technified, but with different management practices, with pruning, which is not usual in Colombia. So you have to take this into account for the estimate. And so far, we have validated crop in Colombia, Peru, and Honduras. Just a few examples of the different modality that we have for data collection. So you can take a picture with no isolation, partial isolation, and full isolation. So the idea, that's a structural estimate. So we need to have the exact number of cherries on a few productive branches, and then we multiply it by the total number of productive branches in the tree. And so the most accurate is with the full isolation, because we are sure of not detecting cherries that do not belong to the branch of interest. But we also are implementing method for automatic branch segmentation, so that automatic branch segmentation is a little bit easier with partial isolation. That's also possible with no isolation, but with a decrease in accuracy. So here you have an example of the treatment pipeline for the count. So you have the raw image, we have the branch segmentation, the cherry detection, and then we correct the occlusion that happens because of the non-visible cherries. Here, for instance, the angle of the picture is not an optimal one. That would be better from the top, so you can maximize the cherries that you see. But we know that in real life condition, that kind of thing happens. So we implemented mechanism for this. And here, that's an example. So with a set of, so that was in Peru, a set of coffee branches where we had the manual count, so the ground reference against the picture. And that shows that without correction, we tend to underestimate the number of cherries with branches with high loads. And we have an effective correction mechanism for the prediction then with the correction of that occlusion that happens. And here you have dispersion of the results, but then when you average for within a tree and across trees, then the error shrinks as it is centered. Just a few comments on other ongoing projects. We have a project with cocoa trees where we try to explore not only RGB pictures, but videos to reconstruct 3D models of the trees. We are working on LiDAR as well, but this is the same idea as Croppy for coffee. We will try as well to extract architectural information so that we can not only have the cocoa yield estimate, but as well generate some recommendation for pruning and that kind of aspects. Other projects that we are exploring as well is to use Croppy ground estimate for coffee and combine it with drone data, remote sensing data, so we can have proxies of the yield and other traits and relate those traits to yield. And finally, this is another idea. So far we haven't had the opportunity to explore that possibility. But the idea is that when you generate your yield estimate, you have contextual information that is useful. You have the leaves and you can spot other element of interest. So the idea would be to work with colleagues that did that kind of analysis for plantain on deficiency, pest and disease detection, but at the same time of the yield estimate, which would be of interest. And that's all for Croppy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gautran. Participants, you are free to ask your questions. You can type it in the chat box. So I'm not seeing any questions, but I just want to thank you for the presentation. I'm sure when we share your contact details, if there are any follow-up questions, the participants who are interested will so reach out. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there is one before you go. What would be the time frame to incorporate another crop?
So again, could you repeat the question? Yes.
What would be the time frame to incorporate another crop?
Okay. That would really depend on the crop. How easy is the detection of the fruits, the occlusion, the cropping system context, if it's technical or not. So I would invite that person maybe to contact us and have more contextual information for that, but that would be too context dependent to provide a simple answer at that moment.
Okay, thank you. There is one more question, and I'm seeing Mr. Jackson. You can go ahead. Well, can you all unmute Mr. Jackson, please, so that he can ask his question?
All right, yes. In terms of, because earlier on this morning, we look at the AgriClimatic app. Is there a linkage with this app as it relates to the yield app, trying to figure out working in sync to give a good estimation of yield?
So that's one of the long-term views. So as research center, the idea is that we can collect really large database of coffee yield, and then, as you're suggesting, relate this to agroclimatic indicators. So that's an ongoing work that we are doing. We don't have this factoring in the application at the moment, but that's surely one point that we want to explore and use it from a research perspective. Use the coffee yield estimate from a research perspective to have insights on under many climates.
Because I was thinking that the information that can be generated from the AgriClimatic app would, you think that there's a duplication of effort in the sense that you can be able to get some of the information from the AgriClimatic app as compared to the one that we have as well?
So strictly, we are generating ground truth yield estimates. So the idea is more like how cropy could be used, then to compute proxies with agroclimatic data. So to better understand how temperature, precipitation, vapor pressure deficit, that kind of thing impact coffee. But the idea is more like cropy can produce accurate ground truth yield. So that's more our vision. Because of I know that you have some crop modeling effort with process-based models and that kind of thing, but I'm not aware of really accurate models. So that's still an ongoing research effort, and this is where cropy yield data can be the output that you try to proxy using your agroclimatic indicators.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions in the chat. One of which is, can an economic element be added so as to show the relation of yield and potential economic returns? So
at the moment, yeah, it depends on the application. For instance, an important use is indeed, like you're a farmer, you can compare yourself to other farmers of the region to understand if you're way below the yield potential of your region. That's one aspect. There is another use as well for financial planning, to have better estimate of future income so that you can better plan your next cropping season. That kind of aspect are indeed of interest.
Someone asked, is coffee suitable for tall coffee trees?
So that's one of the challenges that we had in Uganda, for instance, with systems that are not that technified, especially with Robusta. We have really tall trees with several stems, and this is where it gets a little bit challenging. So the optimal use would be for trees that are not taller than 2 meters, else you would have to climb a ladder and that kind of thing. So I would say that if the trees are really tall, that's a limiting factor.
Is this slide available? I don't want to preempt the answer, but I'm thinking once the team gives us the presentation, we can make arrangements to share the slides with the participants today. But just a reminder as well that the recording of today's session will be up on CARDI's YouTube channel, and that's CARDI Caribbean. All right, and I am seeing the final question here. Would this app identify diseased plants and take that into account when estimating the yield, or yield is based on the number of plants?
Yes, so the pest and disease and deficiency detection is a project that we have, so we need to find a suitable funding opportunity. We have partners with data sets that would be suitable for that. So it's not a feature of the application at the moment. And indeed, to generate yield estimate at the plot level, you need the number of productive trees. So you can have the planting density, and better if you also have the percentage of productive trees, depending on your the state of the crop. But if you have really aged crop, then if you have a significant percentage of no productive crop, you would need to take this into account.
That's it for questions. So I would like to thank you, Dr. Gautran, very much for the presentation and taking the time to answer the questions from the participants. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
We move on now to the final presentation, and we would invite Mr. Tobias Fremont, developer of D4R in multifunction landscape research team, and he'll be presenting on diversity for restoration and cacao diversity, tools that support tree species cultivation.
Yes, thank you. I just sent a request to be able to share my screen. I can't share it yet. Okay, no, I can.
Are you seeing the option now to share your screen?
Yes, sorry. Second. So, yes, thanks a lot. And my name is Tobias Fremont. I'm replacing Evert Thomas for this presentation. It was a bit last minute, so I'm not very well prepared, but I'll do my best to give you an introduction to our tools. I'm going to switch off my camera because I had some connection problems this morning. So, and in case I would break up, please let me know.
Before you continue, Mr. Fremont, can you just change it to the slideshow mode, please?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. So I'm going to present to you mainly the cacao diversity tool. I think in the program it also mentioned the diversity for restoration tool, but the two tools are very similar, and this cacao diversity tool is a bit more advanced. So I thought it would make sense to focus on this one. So it's a tool to assist with the co-design of cacao agroforestry systems, although we're also developing it now for coffee agroforestry. Well, quick introduction. I assume most of you know what an agroforestry system is, but very quickly, so it's a production system in which crops are combined with trees. These trees can be timber trees, but can also be fruit trees, palm species, and so on. And the trees can be planted together with the crop or also on the border, if you use a bit of a broader definition of agroforestry. And the trees can be with or without a specific spatial design. So agroforestry systems, as I suppose also most of you know, they have many potential benefits. So for example, carbon sequestration, of course, an agroforestry system will store much more carbon than a cacao monoculture. They provide habitat for local fauna, so they're also good for biodiversity conservation. Adaptation to heat stress, right, by buffering microclimatic conditions, providing organic matter, improving nutrient cycling, and then also, perhaps most importantly, they can also provide economic benefits to the farmer through the provision of timber and non-timber products. Agroforestry systems also bring challenges. The trees planted with the main crop can compete for resources, for water, for light, for nutrients. It's a bit more difficult for the farmer in terms of management and knowledge, and it also requires a bit of an additional investment. Now, the question that many farmers that want to maybe transition from monoculture to agroforestry systems or start an agroforestry system from scratch is how to design these systems, right? Which species to use, which planting design to use, which planting distances, and where to get the seeds. So the goal of the tool that I'm presenting today is to support this decision making, and this slide shows in a very simple or in a simple way how the tool works. So as inputs, we need the user to provide the location of the plot, the site conditions, and the tree planting objectives. I will show the tool in a minute to make this a bit more clear. And then in return, the tool provides recommendations on recommended species, recommended planting distances, or planting design. And then we're also working on cash flow forecasting and carbon sequestration forecasting. So the tool it builds on the experience of another tool we have called the Diversity for Restoration tool, which you can see the website here. It's freely available, so feel free to Google it. This tool is more focused, so the Diversity for Restoration tool is more focused on forest landscape restoration, and because this webinar has been more about agri-food systems and less about forests, I decided to focus on our other tool, but the two tools work in a quite similar way. So the tool I'm presenting now, Cacao Diversity, we have developed it for these green to red colored areas you can see here. So Central America, several countries in Western South America, so from Venezuela to Bolivia, basically, and then also in Cote d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast in Africa. The tool is freely available online on this website, and I'm going to show you the tool now. I don't know what's wrong with my cursor. Wait, I can't see my cursor anymore. Let me quickly stop sharing to see if that solves the problem. Share again. Yes, that's better. So this is the website. So as I said, it's freely available online. You don't have to register or log in or anything. You can directly start using it. So the first step is to indicate on this map on this Google map on the left where your cacao plot or your future cacao plot is located. So, well, I had already run the tool this morning just to make sure I can show some results. But so the first step is that you start. Wait, I need to. It's better if I delete this polygon. So let me refresh. So as I said, the first step is to look on the map where your plot is located. So for this example, I'm going to take a place in somewhere in the Colombian Amazon, close to Florencia. So let's say we want to here. This actually seems to be cacao, possibly. So we draw the polygon of the plot where we want to install an agroforestry system. Then we click here on finish. And then next you have to indicate what are the site conditions. Well, first you have to indicate, do you want to obtain recommendations on agroforestry system, yes or no? In this case, yes. Yeah, okay. And then next you have to indicate what are the site conditions of that specific plot. So of course, if you're really using the tool, you have to go there and take a good look around or talk to the farmer. What are the site conditions? But just for the example, we can select a few, like for example, acid soils could be a site condition common in the Colombian Amazon. Or for example, also soils with low nutrient contents. But so here is a whole list of conditions. Some are soil related, some are water related, some are degradation related, like for example, compacted soils and so on. Next, you have to specify a few things about the agroforestry system that you want. So first, at which distance will the cacao trees be planted or are they planted? So for example, 3 by 3 is a common planting distance for cacao. Where would you like to plant trees? You can plant trees as permanent shade, so inside the field, or also next to the field. So just for the example, we can select both options. And then you have to indicate how important should these trees be for income generation. If it's mostly for household consumption and maybe just to sell a little bit, you have to indicate the first option. If you want it to be more important in terms of income generation, you can select the second option, sorry. And then if you want it really to be that the trees in your system are equally important or even more important, possibly than cacao for income generation, you can choose the third option. But let's go with the second option for the exercise. Then you have to indicate how much shade cover do you want. And this you can choose between 10 and 50%. There are some studies that have shown, although mostly in Africa, that once the shade cover goes beyond 30 to 40%, the cacao yields start declining, right? So that's why we also only let it go up to 50%. But for example, in places where there are a lot of clouds, you can also go with a lower percentage, like only 20 or even only 10%. But let's go with 30% for sake of trying the tool. Then next you have to indicate what are the tree planting objectives. So these are categorized in different groups. So you have wood products, which includes timber, firewood, and so on. There are food products, which can include fruits or nuts and so on. Other non-timber products, which can include things like fodder or honey or medicinal plants. Regulating ecosystem services includes things like carbon sequestration, erosion control, improving soil fertility. And then biodiversity conservation includes a few species groups that you could want to conserve by planting trees. So for the example, let's take a few. So long cycle commercial timber. So there's also, for example, short cycle, intermediate cycle, depending on when you want to, or how fast you want to harvest the timber. Then food products, we can use fruits for sale. Non-timber products, for example, maybe the farmer has beehives and wants to produce more honey. Maybe also medicinal plants. Regulating ecosystem services, we can choose carbon sequestration, soil fertility improvement. And here we can use, for example, bats and birds. Because bats and birds, or some of them at least, can be important in terms of biological control of cacao pests. And then something else to mention here is that you can also assign a different weight to different groups of objectives. So, for example, if for the farmer, timber production is much more important than the other objectives, you can increase the weight here. So the higher this number, the higher the importance the tool will give to this objective. Maybe you can increase this a bit and increase this also a bit, just for the example. Then finally, 3 more options you have to indicate. So how many species do you want to plant? Well, we can leave this at 10 species. Of course, the more species you want to plant, the more difficult it may be logistically to get your hands on all the planting material of these different species. But we do like the name of the tool suggests, we do recommend to always use not only one, but the diversity of species for different reasons, like risk spreading, income spreading, but also biodiversity reasons and so on. And then, so last 2 options is the climate change scenario. So here is this is a more optimistic climate change scenario you can choose, and this is a slightly more pessimistic one. That's a bit more for expert users, let's say. And then the last question is, do you want to exclude exotic species, yes or no? That's also something we leave up to the user of the tool. Well, yeah, there's not necessarily something wrong inherently with exotic species, but some farmers or some NGOs or projects may really want to focus only on native species. The tool also focuses on native species, but it does include a few exotics, like the most important ones, especially fruit trees. Like, for example, mango trees or citrus trees and all these. They're not native from the Americas, but they can be very important for farmers. Then there are a few other modules here that are not that weren't developed by me, and are also, most of them are not available yet in Colombia. So about cadmium and pests and diseases, and well, it doesn't matter so much. I just want to show you the agroforestry tool, right? So you can leave all these options at no, and no, and then you click on download. And now the tool is running. This takes a minute. So to save a little bit of time, I've run the tool before the presentation already. So this is what the tool generates. So it generates a report. First, it gives the inputs again. So the coordinates, the conditions, the tree planting objectives that the user has indicated. And then it gives a recommendation of which species that can be planted inside the field. So here are a few species, like this is peach palm, this is Peru balsam, Spanish cedar. Yeah, I don't know the English names of all of them. Here are also the local names in Spanish. And here you can see also the scores of the recommended species, but I will explain a little bit more about it in a minute. Same for species to plant next to the field or so at the border of the field. And then here, the planting design. And maybe by now the tool has not yet finished running. So here you can see again the polygon that we have drawn in the beginning, and it shows you yeah, for each of the recommended species where you could plant them, and also with recommended planting distances, right? So you can see some species we recommend to leave only 4 meters between trees, for others even up to 7 meters. This depends on the tree crown traits, which I will also shortly explain in a minute. Let's see if it has run already. It's still loading. Well, yes, I think we're already quite a bit behind schedule, so let me continue with the presentation. So, well, this is our few slides that I include in case there are internet problems or something, so I can show them. I think now the tool has run. So yeah, this is just to show you the report of what we have just run right now. So here you can see again the polygon we have drawn with the recombinant species. So all of this I have shown you already. And then I would like to show you also quickly, without going too much into the technical details, what's behind the tool, because I still think it's useful to understand a bit what's behind it in order to have a bit of confidence, but also to understand limitations of the recommendations provided by the tool. So the first thing behind the tool is species distribution models. So this, well, very in a simplified way or in a conceptual way, these models basically combine presence points, presence coordinates, like you can see here on the left, with different environmental variables, temperature, precipitation, different soil variables, and we put that in some kind of a model to get these species distribution maps, as you can see on the right. Well, for those interested in the technical details, it's Maxent models using the ENM eval package in R and cross-validating the models with the block CV package. But basically, these maps allow us to estimate in which regions we can plant which species, right? Because not all tree species can just be planted everywhere. And we also project these distribution maps to future climate conditions. So that's why the tool asks the users which climate change scenario to take into account. Then the next component behind the tool is local knowledge. For this, we have carried out interviews with cacao farmers throughout these different regions where the tool is implemented. And these interviews include a participatory interview of or participatory inventory of the tree species present in these systems, some questions about farmer knowledge on these tree species. For example, which species compete more or less with cacao, which species are better for soil fertility, which species maybe attract certain pests and diseases that could affect cacao. So all these kinds of things that farmers know just because of years of observing their cacao production systems, and things that are not always that easy to find or just simply don't exist in existing literature or databases. They also include some questions about costs and benefits of different species, and also about preferred species. Then a next component behind the tool is some kind of a trait-based scoring system we developed to score how well the species or the tree species combine with cacao. That's one thing, but also how well they match the site conditions and the restoration or the tree planting objectives, better said. So this is a figure explaining which three traits we have considered for scoring the compatibility of species with cacao. I'm not going to go through all of them, of course, but for example, one important trait in cacao agroforestry is the height of the crown, or you could also call it the height of the trunk. So higher crowns are usually or considered quite important in cacao agroforestry, because if the crown is too low, you get excessive shading of the plants below the tree, and also you get more buildup of humidity, which in turn can then cause more pests and diseases and so on. So basically, we give it then a low score to species with a low crown height and a high score to species with a high crown height. And in a similar way, we link other traits also with the compatibility of tree species to cacao. For example, deep roots are better than superficial roots because cacao plants have superficial roots. So if you plant them together with tree species with deep roots, this then leads to less competition and so on. So as you could see in the report, these scores are shown in a graph. So there are three types of scores. One is the score that scores the compatibility of tree species with cacao. This is the first column here. The second one scores how well the species match the site conditions. And the third one scores how well the species match the objectives indicated by the user. Another component behind the tool, there are lots of things behind the tool, as you can see, is seed zones. So seed zones, for those who haven't heard about this concept, are geographical areas with similar environmental conditions in which you can move seeds around without having the risk that the seeds you'll be planting won't be adapted to the local conditions, right? Because tree species populations can be adapted to local conditions. So for example, even if you have a species that occurs both in dry forests and in rainforests, it's usually not a good idea to move seeds from the dry forests to the rainforest because they may, or the other way around, because they may not be adapted to these conditions, right? So seed zones are a way to guide this decision making. And here you can see an example for seed zones for Côte d'Ivoire on the left. And we also project these seed zones to future climatic conditions. And the tool even recommends to then also source part of the seeds in the future seed zone. And well, to make that a bit less abstract, that usually means that you could also already go to a place that is currently warmer than the planting site to get a part of the seeds there under the assumption that these seeds would be already like pre-adapted to the future climatic changes expected at your planting site. So it's a way to anticipate climate change. Then about the spatial design of the agroforestry system, this is based on farmer priorities. So if the trees are mainly for household consumption, we recommend like, well, I've called it squared planting here. You could also call it spaced planting or something like that. But so it's the figure here on the left. Then if the trees should be more important for income generation, we recommend planting them in rows, like you can see here in the middle. This is because this design allows to have a bit more trees per hectare. That's one thing, but also it facilitates the management and especially also the harvest of these trees. If you plant them all in one line, especially for timber trees, if you want to harvest them, if they are planted in this system, like you see in the middle, you can basically harvest them one by one and let them fall in the direction of the tree line, right? So if you let them fall in this direction, you have much less damage to the cacao trees. While if you let trees fall in the design on the left, yeah, you can see you will always have quite some damage to cacao plants. And then a third option, if the tree should be really important for income generation, like similar or even more important than cacao. By the way, I'm using cacao, but yeah, some people say cocoa. At the Alliance, we usually prefer to call it cacao if we talk about the plant, and cocoa only about the product. So if trees should be more important, then you can also consider double row planting. That's a system not so common yet, but for example, in Colombia, promoted by an institution called Agri. And of course, it allows to have even more trees per hectare, and it makes the harvesting and the management even more easy. Then about the planting distances, these are based on the crown character traits, like I said before. So basically, we assume that the shade generated by a tree is just like the vertical projection of the crown, and assuming that the crown is a perfect circle and so on. And well, this is a formula we used. I didn't have time to translate this part from Spanish. But yeah, I'm also not going to go into too much detail. We can share the presentation also afterwards for those that would be interested. But basically, it's calculating the planting distances based on tree crown diameter. So the bigger the crown, of course, the more apart you have to plant the trees, and also based on tree crown density. So and there also, if you have a more dense crowns, you have to also plant them a bit further apart to avoid to have too much shade in your plot. Then, well, two last elements behind the tool that are still work in progress. So one is cash flow forecasting, which is basically a forecast of the costs and benefits throughout the life cycle of your agroforestry system. As you can see here on the graph, so the negative part of the graph are the costs, and the positive part are the income or the benefits. And well, yeah, this cash flow forecasting is based mainly on the production quantities of different species and on the prices of the products provided by these species. But it's quite a data-intensive thing, no? Because you need to know from each species how much it produces and what the price is, which is not something you can just find. Which is not that easy to find. So for now, we have only been able to develop it for Peru, but we're also in the process of doing it for the Amazon region in Colombia and for Guatemala also. And then the last element behind the tool is carbon sequestration forecasting. So we also want to predict how much carbon this recommended design could sequester. And so this is based then on species diameter growth rates to start with. Then we use allometric equations, some kind of mathematical formulas to link this diameter growth also with the height growth of species. And then both the diameter and the height are then put in another type of formula, also allometric equations, to estimate the above ground carbon stocks of the different species. And so the output looks something like this. And you can see there is here a small drop at year 12 and another drop at year 20. That's because some of, I think one or two of the species would be harvested for timber at that point. So then you get the small drop, of course, in the carbon stocks. So that was the explanation about the tool. Very quickly, some next steps. We're also developing it for coffee agroforestry. We kind of have a first version available for Peru already at the Tree Planner website, but at this very moment, the website isn't working. So I don't want to make too much publicity about it either. We're outscaling also for coffee agroforestry in India, and cacao agroforestry in Ghana and Sulawesi in Indonesia. Not yet for now in the Caribbean, but possibly there could become a project on coffee agroforestry in Jamaica, for example. We also want to link our tool with the MyFarmTrees tool that was presented earlier today. We want to add information about nurseries and seed sources. So not only about the seed zone, but actually also actual places where people can get the seeds. Add information on propagation and management of tree species. And then perhaps most importantly, we also want to install test plots or demonstrative plots of these agroforestry systems with the help of the tool. And we have already started that actually in Peru. in collaboration with a few cacao cooperatives. And hopefully this year we'll also start doing the same in the Amazon region of Colombia. If you would like to have more information about the science behind the tool, we don't have a publication yet on this tool itself. I'm working on it, and hopefully we can submit it soon. But there is already a publication on the Diversity for Restoration tool, which is quite similar. And then also, yeah, a publication about the local knowledge and the seed zones, in case you're interested. And lastly, to finish the presentation, if you would be interested in collaborating with us to develop this tool, be it for cocoa or coffee agroforestry in your work area, please feel free to contact us, to contact me or Evert at these email addresses that you can see here. And yeah, that's it for me. Thanks a lot for your attention. Hopefully you are not too tired yet after so many presentations. But yeah, the floor is open for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. We do have two questions in the chat. The first one is, do you plan to adapt this app to be used for other crops/trees outside of cocoa and coffee?
Yes, well, we have a new project now in Peru that hasn't started yet, but in which we are planning to also develop a similar tool for silvopastoral systems. So combination of livestock with trees, basically. So that's something that's already planned. And well, at one point we would also like to further scale the tool maybe to other types of agroforestry systems. I don't know, like maize agroforestry or tea agroforestry or whatever. I mean, a similar logic could be applied, right? But each system or each crop has its own particularities. So it would need some a bit of money to adapt it to other crops, but it's certainly possible. But for now, the only thing that's really planned already is to adapt it for silvopastoral systems.
Thank you. And the final question I'm seeing here is, will this app help you to identify optimal planting conditions for your tree?
Well, the app works in a bit in the other direction, right? So if you have a certain tree species and you want to know where should you plant it, well, you could also use the app indirectly, but the app works a bit in the other direction. So by specifying the site conditions and also the location of your planting site, we then use this species distribution models that I just explained, but also this trait-based scoring to indeed recommend the most appropriate species for those site conditions, right? For example, let's say if you have a place that could be flooded, then we consider the resistance to floodings as one of the traits in the species scoring to try to guide the users to those species that are indeed resistant to flooding. So yes, the tool does more or less consider or include that already. If I understood the question well, hopefully.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any more questions. So it means that we have officially come to the end of the presentations and nearing the end of today's webinar. But before we close, I would just like to say thank you to all 8 presenters from CIAT and the Alliance for Bioversity International for taking the time to share their work on digital tools with us. We were given a very good introduction into the 7 tools and see how they work across the region. This is very important as we move to the next phase of this project, which is working with the teams in country to identify a suitable tool and tailoring it for piloting. tailoring it to suit our local conditions. The 4 project countries, this is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts, Jamaica, and Guyana. Just to remind you that these stakeholder planning meetings are coming up later in March. March 10th, we'll be in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. March 14th, Jamaica. March 18th, Guyana. March 19th, St. Kitts and Nevis. The CARDI officers in these countries will be contacting and liaising with the various agencies to be part of these meetings. Of course, we do look forward to your input and participation. I would also like to thank the Presidential Agency for International Cooperation, APC Colombia, for providing the financial support for this initiative. Thank you very much. It is much needed and it is much appreciated. Thanks to you, all our participants who stayed with us. I knew it was a very long session, but we truly appreciated you staying and being engaged throughout. Finally, a special thank you to my CARDI colleagues who worked behind the scenes to plan and successfully execute this webinar. Thank you. Your efforts were not unnoticed. Thanks again, everyone. We have officially come to the end of today's session. Just to remind you that the contact details for all the presenters are in the chat, so you can get it off there. Thanks again for being with us, staying with us, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Thanks, everyone.